Chapter 27-28. If they hadn't come here, their lives would be countless times better now. But it was impossible for them to go back because their daily salary was only enough to fill their stomachs. It was impossible to save enough money for the ferry home. In the past, Chi Hongchang could buy 3 subpoenas, but now he couldn't. Firstly, he couldn't find connections, and secondly, he didn't have money. The 3 of them all had the idea of going home. What kind of life were they living here? And they were discriminated against everywhere. Yu Binglan especially couldn't stand this kind of life. It felt like the father and daughter were sucking blood from her and relying on her to survive. She really couldn't support the 2 of them. Her little savings weren't enough for the 3 of them. She really couldn't stand this kind of life. She ate the worst food, lived in a pigsty, and was looked down upon. She didn't feel it in China, but here, she realized that the discrimination was too serious. This kind of discrimination based on skin color, even if the homeless were white, could despise the black people who worked hard. White was the noblest, yellow was second, and black was the lowest. Black slaves were bought and sold everywhere. Yu Binglan packed her things and prepared to leave while the father and daughter went to work. She reluctantly used all her savings to buy the ticket. No matter what, she had to return to her country. There, she could continue to paint and meet people who admired her paintings. And not be looked down upon here. In the past, their love was so pure that the world couldn't tolerate it. But now, this love was mixed with too many things. It was no longer the love from before. If she left now, she could still leave a beautiful memory for each other. She didn't want to recall this love in the future with only hysteria and hatred for each other. She didn't want to become like Feng Jia, violent, ferocious, and terrifying. So Yu Binglan looked back 3 times with every step and finally left. When Chi Yingmeng and Chi Hongchang returned home, Yu Binglan was no longer there. Chi Hongchang was still worried that something might have happened to Yu Binglan if she didn't come home so late. Public security overseas wasn't necessarily good, especially at night. Many night owls wandered around, and women were especially unsafe. The social situation created many idle people. There were countless robberies and rapes. Chi Yingmeng's heart skipped a beat as she realized something. It had been almost a year since Chi Yingmeng had come here. She had experienced many hardships and met all kinds of people in the restaurant. Chi Yingmeng was no longer a mushroom in a beautiful ivory tower. The first thing he did was to open the musty and damp cabinet. Yu Binglan's clothes were gone. Chi Yingmeng sneered. Yu Binglan left. She abandoned her father. Although he had expected this day to come, it had come so quickly. Chi Yingmeng smiled until she felt like crying. Whose fault was this? Chi Hongchang suffered a blow. He did not believe that Yu Binglan would leave just like that. Why did he go abroad? It was to get rid of Feng Jia and be with her so that she would no longer be a concubine. However, he didn't expect to lose the money. Chi Hongchang didn't know if he had lost it or forgotten it. In short, Chi Hongchang, who had suffered a great blow, got drunk every day. Whatever money he had at home was all used by him to drink. Chi Yingmeng had to support her family every day and take care of her drunkard father. She wanted to cry every day. Money wasn't everything, but there was no money to make life so difficult for people. The family on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean had fallen apart. Ning Shu's side was slightly better. At least he could eat and wear warm clothes every day. Ning Shu thought about it and decided to be a midwife. If anyone around him was sick, he could take a look at it. Ning Shu would list out the child's difficult labor one by one and then deal with it smoothly. There were also some cases of colds or women's gynecology. He wrote down the case and symptoms. When the client came back, he didn't know much about medicine, but he could treat some minor illnesses according to these symptoms. He couldn't treat major illnesses, but he could make a living with minor illnesses. However, being a doctor was also a big deal. If he couldn't treat it, it was easy for something to happen. Ning Shu wrote a message. When he encountered an illness that he couldn't treat or was beyond his ability, he would refuse to treat it and admit that he couldn't treat it. He wrote a little every day. It was enough for the client to see some headaches and fever. Moreover, at this time, most of the older people had some basic treatment. They didn't have the money to go to the hospital. Ning Shu became familiar with the people around the small courtyard. Most of the people here were at the bottom of the food chain. Some worked as coolies at the docks and some worked as rickshaws. In short, life was tough. Women worked as maids. Those who looked a little better and were diligent enough to cook would go to rich families to work as helpers. In short, life wasn't easy. When the neighbors heard that Ning Shu's husband was paralyzed in bed, they all looked at him with sympathy. There were also some who had designs on Ning Shu. They thought that he was a widow and wanted to steal a man's kiss. Ning Shu violently suppressed all of them and broke their legs. However, in front of everyone, Ning Shu pretended to be pitiful. After a long time, no man dared to have any crooked thoughts. Ning Shu said that it was good to have martial arts. He also wrote down the ultimate martial arts. In the future, the client would be alone. With some power, he could at least decide his own fate. Right now, Ning Shu wanted to be an honest commoner. Otherwise, he would have taken out his gun and scared these peeping bastards to death. When he went out to see a doctor, he sometimes got some money. Sometimes he got some food, like a handful of vegetables or half a caddy of meat. Ning Shu didn't lack for food. The only person he worried about was Jiangchen. If he threw him on the bed, he wouldn't have to look at him for half a month. She should be leaving soon, but what if this guy didn't wake up? Ning Shu was already planning to buy a coffin. Before he left, he had to bury this guy. He couldn't leave it to the client. The client had no relationship with Jiangchen. He couldn't watch over a dead person. Jiangchen was dead. Apart from the fact that his body hadn't rotted or hardened, he was dead. He was sleeping like a log and didn't seem to be waking up at all. Ning Shu didn't think he'd wake up anytime soon. And so, Ning Shu burst into tears. He covered his face and ran out of the house to buy a coffin. When the neighbors heard that Ning Shu's husband had died, they all expressed sympathy and came to help. They said that Ning Shu was a married woman and couldn't handle everything. And so, the sleeping Jiangchen was washed up, dressed in shrouds, and put on some makeup. Then they carried him up the mountain, dug a hole, and buried him. Ning Shu had chosen the place in advance. When they buried him, they'd set up a spirit gathering formation that could gather the surrounding spiritual energy. Although there wasn't much spiritual energy now, they were still in the mountains. It wasn't a populated area, so some spiritual energy could still be gathered. /BK. Chapter 27-29. The coffin had been placed in the formation. Over time, it had accumulated a bit of spiritual energy. Jiangchen was buried. In front of so many people, Ning Shu was heartbroken. He hammered his fists and wept bitterly. "Io, why did you die so tragically? Why did you pass away so early? How could you live without me?" The others all comforted Ning Shu. Life still had to go on. Ning Shu sprinkled a few drops of cat urine. Finally, the matter of burying Jiangchen was over. But on days like the first 7 days and the third 7 days, the neighbors reminded Ning Shu not to forget to burn some paper for her husband. Ning Shu, if he'd known, he wouldn't have bought a coffin. He should have just buried Jiangchen. If he'd known Jiangchen wouldn't wake up for so long, he'd have buried him long ago. There was no helping it. Ning Shu had to complete the act. Because someone had died, Ning Shu didn't go out to treat patients. Some people were afraid of this kind of thing. But sometimes, when Ning Shu went shopping, he'd find someone who looked like Yu Binglan in the plaza. Ning Shu shook his head. Hadn't Yu Binglan gone abroad with Qi Hongchang? How could she be here? That was impossible. He scanned the area with his mental power. It really was her. She was painting on a drawing board. Occasionally, she'd paint portraits. Yu Binglan had lost a lot of weight. Her cheeks were sunken. She looked a bit old. Forget spiritual energy or poetry, there was nothing left of her. Since Yu Binglan was back, did that mean Qi Hongchang and Qi Yingmeng were back too? If they hadn't, then Yu Binglan had abandoned the love she'd relied on to survive. When Yu Binglan packed up and went home, Ning Shu followed behind her. He saw Yu Binglan enter a small, old-fashioned house. There were all kinds of bamboo poles holding up clothes to dry. She passed through the narrow passageway below. Ning Shu hadn't expected Yu Binglan to live in this kind of house. Her family seemed to have left her alone. So Yu Binglan had abandoned Qi Hongchang and Yu Binglan and returned to the country alone. Their lives abroad weren't easy. Even Yu Binglan, a woman who lived by love, had given up on it. Yu Binglan had returned, but the father and daughter had not. Their lives must have been very difficult. However, Ning Shu didn't feel anything. It was Qi Yingmeng who had chosen to leave with Qi Hongchang. This was the path he had chosen, and he had to continue walking it while vomiting blood. As for Yu Binglan, Ning Shu didn't plan to meet her. He didn't know if Yu Binglan would find love again. Would he meet a sucker like Qi Hongchang? If Qi Hongchang had some money, he probably wouldn't be like this. Only after eating and drinking to one's heart's content would one have spiritual pursuits. When eating and drinking were already a problem, there was naturally no such thing as spiritual pursuits. Qi Hongchang and his client vividly explained that husband and wife were birds in the same forest, but when disaster struck, they flew away separately. Then, Qi Hongchang and Yu Binglan vividly explained that they could share the joys and sorrows but not the sorrows. They could share the glory and wealth. Even if Qi Hongchang was rich, when he fell sick, he could just wait for euthanasia. Ning Shu no longer paid attention to Yu Binglan. Instead, someone invited him to see a doctor, and he was respected by others. Every time he encountered an illness, he would write it down. If it got worse, he would increase the dosage. Around him, there were people who were about to give birth, and Ning Shu helped them. Ning Shu originally wanted to buy medicine through some channels, but he almost got himself into trouble. Now, the EU was strictly investigating the people who bought the medicine. Once they were found, they would be arrested. Death was not negotiable. Ning Shu hurriedly retracted his hand. He didn't dare to make a fuss anymore. Since he couldn't buy it, he wouldn't sell it. In short, the world was in a state of panic. Although you might not do anything wrong, there was a chance that disaster would fall from the sky. The EU was arresting people everywhere, and those who were caught were basically dead. Civil war and invaders. In any case, the people had no way to make a living. 2333. Mission complete. Do you want to leave the mission world? Ning Shu thought for a moment, then ran up the mountain to burn some paper and incense for Jiangshan. Sister, I'm leaving. Bye-bye. There was no response from the grave. Jiangshan was still asleep. The world was in chaos now. It was safer to lie underground. Ning Shu left the world and returned to the system space. He collapsed on the sofa and opened his hand. The ultimate martial art book on the bookshelf flew into his hand. He poured the pure soul origin into the book. The cracks on its surface became fewer and fewer. By the time he finished absorbing the soul origin, the peerless martial art had already taken on a whole new look. There weren't any cracks at all. The words on the surface were thick and looked brand new. Her world was fixed. Ning Shu checked his world over and over again. He made sure there weren't any cracks. It was as if it had been reborn. It was really fixed. Now, the only problem left was the law of nothingness. Previously, he thought that the soul origin he made wasn't enough to repair the ultimate martial art. Unexpectedly, there was still a bit left. Ning Shu planned to use it himself. There was soul fluid and soul stone. 2333. You'd better not make your soul too strong and stuff it into the user's ordinary body. When doing missions, it's easy to wear and tear the user's body. Wasn't there an example before? If one's karma was too strong, their body wouldn't be able to withstand it. It would be riddled with holes. Alright, mission enforcers couldn't add karma to their body. They couldn't be too strong or too weak. If they were too strong, the user's body wouldn't be able to withstand it. If they were too weak, they would be easily affected by the user's emotions. It was difficult to be a mission enforcer. Ning Shu gave up on absorbing the soul origin and collected the remaining soul origin. Right, soul origin was very precious. Now, the ultimate martial art didn't need soul origin anymore. Then, he could use soul origin to exchange for star stones. Karma and faith power weren't attractive. He didn't believe that these people would ignore soul origin. In the end, he didn't take out anything attractive. It was also because he was a weak shrimp now. If he could pick up trash, he could at least get 1 or 2 star stones. Ning Shu was very happy that he had solved a problem. He was afraid that if he couldn't repair it, he wouldn't know where to find soul origin. If he really killed creatures to make soul fluid, there would be a black gun barrel pointing at him to obliterate him. Therefore, he might not be able to get soul fluid through regular channels. Ning Shu got some soul fluid and asked 2333 to send it to the main system to be purified. Before he could comprehend the spatial laws and rules, he relied on this thing to exchange for star stones. When he could pick up trash, he wouldn't take out such a precious thing to exchange for stones. Ning Shu felt his heart ache as soon as he thought about it. That star stone was useless except for being able to hold the law of nothingness and connect planes. But he needed this thing to hold it. In short, Ning Shu felt that he was losing out, but he couldn't refuse it. He felt depressed for himself. If he wanted to get more soul fluid, he would have to collect the soul fluid produced by the small workshops on the second level. /BK. Chapter 2730. Ning Shu opened the attribute panel and looked at the rewards this time. She had lost the client's daughter after all. Ning Shu really didn't want to care about this daughter. She gave the choice to Qi Yingmeng. If Qi Yingmeng chose to stay, then she would live with Qi Yingmeng. If Qi Yingmeng left with Qi Hongchang, she would be free alone. Obviously, Qi Yingmeng chose her father and not her mother. She followed her body's instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. She chose someone she could rely on. Obviously, her father was someone she could rely on. Qi Yingmeng probably also understood that if she followed her father, her life wouldn't be bad. If Ning Shu didn't exist, this was obviously the right thing to do. Obviously, but Ning Shu took the money away. When they went abroad, the three of them would definitely be in a difficult situation. It would be very difficult for them to survive. To be honest, the client's relationship with Qi Yingmeng's mother was really shallow. The client had suffered hysterical pain because of betrayal all her life. This made Qi Yingmeng unhappy. When it came to Ning Shu, although the relationship was a little better, it was also the result of Ning Shu's efforts. But this was not enough to make Qi Yingmeng choose to be with her. Perhaps in Qi Yingmeng's heart, whether it was Feng Jia, this mother, or Ning Shu, this mother, they were both unreliable mothers. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Enforcer Contribution Card, 402 plus 30, 10 million points for 1 contribution card. Soul Value, 36 plus 2 Health Value, 32 plus 2 Wisdom, 38 plus 2 Luck, 38 plus 2 Charm, 31 plus 2 Spiritual Power, 42 plus 2 Martial Strength, 37 plus 2 Aptitude, 40 plus 2 Faith, 6109, 940 plus 9,000 Merit, 17 million plus 5,000 plus 50,000 Soul Strength, 140 plus 10 Authorization Ticket, plus 1 Pure Heart, None Comprehended Law, Water Law Incarnation, Wood Law Incarnation, Space Law Constructed World, Reincarnation World Items, Calm Halo, Calming Pill, Faith Halo, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet plus 2 Honorary Titles, Goddess of War. Selfless Ancestor Skills. 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Level Close Combat Technique, Minor Achievement in Peerless Martial Arts, Level Poison Technique, Low-Level Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skill, Heavenly Master Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Cooking Skill, Level Embroidery Skill, Trash Hypnosis. Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Qinshi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend of a Lifetime, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Su Nyang's Blessing, Founding Woman, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty-in-Law, Chen Ning's Blessing, Bane of the Blood Clan, Jasmine's Blessing, Transcendental Race Communication by San Yang's Blessing, Brave Heart, Wang Ying's Blessing, Bloodthirsty Tyrant, and I Bingyan's Blessing, Heart of Peace and Joy, Luck Halo, Faith Halo, and Longevity. Feng Jia's wish was fulfilled. Mission completion rate, 100%. Mission rewards obtained, 30-point cards, 16 attribute points, 80% soul power, 9,000 faith power, including previous world's accumulation, 40% soul power, and 40% soul origin. Additional repayment of 50,000 points. Ning Shu saw that the person who repaid the debt was Mei Ziqing. Mei Ziqing owed him 500,000 merit points. This was the second time he had repaid 100,000 merit points. He was still 400,000 merit points short. There was still some interest. The 80% soul power was not bad. This meant that the person who asked him was satisfied. She didn't give less soul power because of Qi Yingmeng. Actually, the person who asked him should have understood that parents and children were individuals. Even if there was a choice, it was still a personal choice. There was no way to change it. Even if he was sad, it was useless. The mission completion rate was also 100%. Another mission was completed. There was one less mission to complete. Ning Shu didn't care about quantity now. He wanted to complete every mission to 100%. It didn't matter if he did 2 fewer missions. 2333, bastard, you just want to waste time. Don't find excuses. He clearly wanted to waste his time elsewhere. Why did he have to say that he wanted to improve? How shameless. Ning Shu, I really think so. If I don't meet the requirements, I will be killed. I might as well do less and complete every mission well. We don't care about quantity. We care about quality. 2333, hee, you're not a newbie mission enforcer. You can solve all the problems you encounter. What are you pretending for? Lazy guy. You want me to do the systems missions. 2333, if I don't want you to do the systems missions, are you going to do them now? Ning Shu, the problem is that I have a lot of things to do now. If I don't get the Star Stone, the world that I painstakingly repaired will be devoured. Both you and I are going to die. Ning Shu crossed his legs and opened the chat system. Who could he find to do business with? His Excellency, forget it. He was an existence that devoured souls. He probably didn't care about the soul origin. Senior uncle, he was still blacklisted and couldn't be contacted. The last choice was Fragrant Wind Guy. This was the only way to get the Star Stone. Ning Shu greeted him and went straight to the point. He said that he had a pure soul origin and wanted to exchange it for the Star Stone. Fragrant Wind Guy, open the video. I want to see what the soul origin looks like. Is it pure? Is your source legitimate? Ning Shu opened the video and put a small bottle of golden soul origin in front of the screen. I just got this purified by the main system. It's absolutely pure. Fragrant Wind Guy's huge face appeared in front of the screen. Ning Shu looked away. He couldn't bear to look. Fragrant Wind Guy turned off the video. Okay, how do you want to exchange? See, he said that Fragrant Wind Guy had the Star Stone. He just didn't want to sell it to him. Ning Shu rubbed his hands. He definitely had to ask for more. This time, he could hold the law of nothingness for a longer time. Fragrant Wind Guy, let me tell you, we don't have much stock. It's impossible for you to ask for more. In fact, I'm worried that you don't know where this thing came from. It will implicate me. We do private transactions like this. Both the buyer and seller will be unlucky. So, we don't have much stock. If you don't want to exchange, forget it. When Ning Shu heard what Fragrant Wind Guy said, he wanted to roll his eyes. This way of bargaining was really different. Ning Shu asked directly, then how much can you give me? I have a pure soul origin. It's pure. After removing the impurities from the big basin, there's only this small bottle left. Bragging, let's brag together. 2 big Star Stones. That's the most I can give you, Fragrant Wind Guy said. Ning Shu had no choice. He could only exchange. He needed this thing, but he didn't have it. He could persevere until he could pick up trash. He didn't need to ask for help anymore. However, comprehending the law of space was unprecedentedly slow. Ning Shu felt that he really didn't have talent in this area. He wasn't good at 3-dimensional geometry. He couldn't afford to be bad at mathematics. /BK. Chapter 2731. There were still so many laws waiting for her to comprehend. After fully comprehending the space, Ning Shu still had to comprehend the rules, the Heavenly Dao rules, so that she could pick up trash. The 2 of them exchanged, and 2 1-meter-tall star stones appeared in the system space. They were quite big, and these 2 should be able to last for a while. Her world had been repaired, and she must not let the law of nothingness overflow. Ning Shu carried one into the land of ultimate martial arts, threw the other into the land of nothingness, and put the other one aside for a while before throwing it in. Ning Shu poured a green rain into the world to add a bit of vitality. This was originally a world of faith, and it had the instinct to protect itself. With more vitality, it might be able to resist the law of nothingness for a while longer. Ning Shu put her hand on her forehead and looked, and felt that the law of nothingness seemed to have grown bigger again. She had not added anything to it anymore, but why was it still growing bigger? Ning Shu felt very depressed. The energy of the law of wood mark had been used up, and the water droplets on the green leaves were gone. The mark was burning hot. Ning Shu used the land of ultimate martial arts, and first went to Wood City to absorb the energy and repair the barrier of Wood City. Even if there were no problems, he still had to check. Then he rushed to Water City. One oversight, and another 100 years of tax revenue was gone, 1,000,000 merit points were gone, and he was even criticized. He decided to come and take a look, or else this thing would have a situation where the barrier collapsed again. He would probably have to hand over the city lord's medal and face a big punishment. Once or twice, he would be questioned about his ability. After inspecting the barriers of the two cities, he decided to make them thicker and thicker. Then he prepared to go to Space City to comprehend the law of space. 2333, come back quickly, something happened? Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and asked calmly, what happened? As long as the law of nothingness didn't collapse, Ning Shu felt that he could calmly face all kinds of things. 2333, you were reported, and now you are being investigated. Ning Shu, fuck. Kamayas. Ning Shu hurriedly returned to the system space. Who the hell reported him? As soon as he returned to the system space, the chatter from the system sounded as if it was urging him on. Ning Shu opened the chat system and found a message from the main system. Mission Enforcer 2333 wants to be investigated for special reasons. Then he received a message from the Grand Elder. Grand Uncle, I heard that you're selling soul fluid. Are you making it yourself? Senior Grand Uncle, tell me when you see the news. Senior Grand Uncle, since you're not replying, you're accepting the investigation. Ning Shu was so angry that he flipped the sofa. Fuck, you've already blacklisted me. How am I supposed to reply? Ning Shu tried to send a message, but it didn't go through. The main system sent a message asking Ning Shu to wait in the Time City for an investigation. Ning Shu sent a message to Fragrant Wind Man, you're doing business with me, and now you're reporting me. Doing business with you and reporting you are two different things. Your situation is very dangerous, so you have to be investigated by the organization. The organization already knows about your situation, so they won't frequently inspect and audit you. Ning Shu said angrily, you don't know where this soul fluid came from, but didn't you go to the Nine Palace Mountain with Grand Elder to take a look? They inspected him again and again. That was then and this is now. It's hard to guarantee that you won't use someone with certain ability to make soul fluid for you in this world. It's not like this hasn't happened before. People are greedy, and their appetites will only get bigger and bigger. The investigation will only benefit you. Otherwise, if I want to trade with you in the future, I'm afraid I'll be implicated by you. If your things are of unknown origin, especially things like souls, I'll also be punished. Ning Shu sighed. Thank you so much for reporting me. Fragrant Wind Man, you're welcome. We're all comrades in the same organization. Ning Shu chuckled. That world wasn't originally under the control of the organization. Does the organization still want to manage it? Does the organization manage all the worlds built by people? Fragrant Wind Man, the organization only manages it because it has eaten too much. It's just afraid that some people will create their own worlds and then create ordinary planes. Generally, mission enforcers who build living worlds won't interfere too much with the development of their living worlds, unless something happens. If you mess around, you'll hurt your own world. Do you really think you can enclose the world's living creatures? The world's heavenly axiom has collapsed, and the world is finished. Mission enforcers don't have living worlds anymore. They have no value in the organization. As far as I know, that world wasn't built by you, right? It's not your own world. You don't feel bad about creating it at all. Ning Shu, listening to Fragrant Wind Man blabber on, it made people dizzy. How long-winded was this person? Ning Shu, shut up. Exchanging things with Fragrant Wind Man was a wrong decision. Anyway, she had nothing to investigate. She didn't do anything. As for the soul fluid, she could explain it clearly. She could investigate it however she wanted. Ning Shu secretly held a grudge in her heart. If Fragrant Wind Man had any problems next time, she would report him immediately. Fragrant Wind Man was the only one who could make a report so elegant and refined. His words were full of the meaning of, "I'm doing it for your own good." If there really was a problem with her, she would have peed her pants by now. Ning Shu picked up the black bone umbrella and went to the City of Time. When she arrived at the restaurant, the Cheongsam man stood at the door with a fan. When he saw Ning Shu, he asked, "What did you do again?" Again? She was probably cursed recently. That was why she was so unlucky. Unlucky things kept happening. Ning Shu said, "Nothing." Ning Shu could only comfort herself in her heart. These were all powerful troubles, powerful troubles. She was too eye-catching. Ning Shu walked into the restaurant hall with the black bone umbrella and saw the grand uncle and the silver-haired man. Were they the ones who were investigating her? Ning Shu played with the umbrella handle and walked over to ask, "How do you want to investigate?" The silver-haired man stood up and said with a book, "Go to that world and investigate if you refined soul fluid." Of course not. I'm proud and I mean what I say. No means no. Ning Shu raised her head and puffed out her chest. The grand uncle said to the silver-haired man, "Take down the confession. If it's found to be inconsistent with the facts, you'll be punished even more." Ning Shu was speechless. What confession? She hadn't committed a crime yet. How could there be a confession? Ning Shu was a little curious. What was the silver-haired man in charge of in the organization? He seemed to be worried. He had to take care of military expenses and any problems with this kind of mission taker. "Are you two together this time?" Ning Shu asked. The grand uncle glanced at her. "Together to ensure that you're not keeping souls in captivity." If she was, he had to punish her as an example. If he didn't do anything for a period of time, people's hearts would waver. /BK. Chapter 2732. Ning Shu opened the black hole and went in first, followed by the silver-haired man and the Grand Elder. The three of them entered the second level. How to investigate was their business. She just followed behind them. They found a slightly bigger town and a place to make soul fluid. Ning Shu knew that this pattern wouldn't disappear soon. She didn't invent it. The silver-haired man opened the book and sucked the soul of the person who made the soul fluid into the book. Ning Shu looked at him curiously. What was this operation? Was he interrogating these souls? After a long while, those souls were finally dug out. They were listless, and it was obvious that they had gone through a round of torture. The Grand Elder asked, "How is it?" The silver-haired man shook his head. "Nothing unusual." The Grand Elder glanced at Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled. "Nothing is wrong." Ning Shu took away all the soul fluid made in the town and destroyed the device. The Grand Elder and the Grand Elder saw Ning Shu take away the soul fluid. They didn't say anything and rushed to the next place. Ning Shu put away the soul fluid and followed behind the two with the black bone umbrella. They were investigating in front while she collected the soul fluid from behind. It felt good. When she rushed to the village this time, the soul fluid was stolen and the device was destroyed. Ning Shu slapped his thigh, annoyed. Damn, who stole it? The silver-haired man followed the previous steps and interrogated some souls. A person's mouth might lie, but the life experience engraved in the soul wouldn't lie. These things hadn't been washed away by the rebirth pool. They were the most real existence in a person's life. After a while, the silver-haired man released the souls and they returned to their bodies. The silver-haired man shook his head at the Grand Elder. "I didn't find anything unusual, but she's quite detestable in this world." Ning Shu was speechless. "Master?" Yi Lin had already left, but he felt a familiar throbbing. It was probably the throbbing of a peerless martial art. He turned back and saw Ning Shu holding an umbrella. When Ning Shu saw his little disciple, he could feel that his aura had become much stronger, and there was a little girl by his side, by Cici. Ning Shu beckoned Yi Lin over. Yi Lin was a little hesitant. A guy dressed in black and a guy with long straight silver hair were staring at him, making him extremely nervous. The muscles all over his body were trembling. He didn't feel this way even when he was facing a terrifying spirit beast. Yi Lin grabbed Bai Cici's hand and ran over to Ning Shu like a wisp of smoke. He asked, "Master, why are you here? Where have you been all this time? This is the soul fluid I recently collected. Take it." Suddenly, she felt two needle-like gazes piercing her body. Ning Shu was speechless. What a disciple who cheated his master. Ning Shu accepted the soul fluid with a chuckle and said with relief, "Remember to destroy the device. Otherwise, those people will refine more soul fluid after you leave." "It's all destroyed," Yi Lin said. Ning Shu showed an even more gratified expression. Well done." Ning Shu spread his hands to the silver-haired man and the Grand Elder. "It's like what you see. I'm working hard to let the souls go to the world of samsara. As for the soul fluid, if I don't keep it, am I going to throw it away? Why not keep the ready-made soul fluid? Since he could do good deeds and get benefits, why not take it?" The Grand Elder said, "Investigate some more souls." The silver-haired man nodded and opened the book. A page floated up and flew higher and higher, bigger and bigger. Many souls were sucked into the book from all directions. Yi Lin was stunned. "Who are these people?" He pulled Ning Shu's sleeve. "Master, who are these people?" Ning Shu said lightly, "I don't know." "How's the Saint Envoy?" Ning Shu saw that Bai Cici was fine. Nothing happened. That was because Yi Lin had protected her well. Yi Lin's expression hardened. "I killed them all. Master, I plan to establish a sect. Do what you want." Ning Shu didn't have any objections. In a situation like stopping the soul fluid, it would require a long battle. In fact, the reason why Yi Lin wanted to establish a sect was not only because of the soul fluid, but also because he wanted to have enough strength to resist the so-called saint sect. After all, it was a hidden sect. They were very strong. He couldn't fight alone. Bai Cici still needed his protection. Although Bai Cici wasn't weak now, she looked worried when talking about the saint sect. Obviously, she was worried about their future. In order to protect themselves, they had to grow until the other party couldn't touch them. They needed a strong sect. It wasn't realistic to rely on other sections. Especially since he was the disciple of the red-clothed witch. He wasn't liked by others. Ning Shu didn't have anything to do with his disciple's future. Besides, the heavenly Tao had already planned his future for him. Ning Shu could only say, "Do what you want to do. Master will support you. Good luck." Ning Shu stared at the huge paper spinning in the air as he spoke. Very good. What was in the silver-haired man's book? It felt like there were other things besides the world. But he couldn't just casually ask someone to lend his things to him to take a look. The silver-haired man wouldn't dump her. It felt like everyone had a trump card. Ning Shu felt that he should also have a trump card. "Master, who is he?" Yi Lin looked at the Grand Elder in a trench coat with a hidden gaze. The wind blew at the corner of the trench coat. The gold-rimmed glasses reflected a cold luster, sending chills down one's spine. Even when facing the encirclement of the 8 saints, he didn't feel anything. He was trembling with fear and trepidation. The Grand Elder turned his head and glanced at Yi Lin, who was hiding behind Ning Shu. Bai Cici was hiding behind Yi Lin. Ning Shu seemed to have grown 2 tails. The Grand Elder retracted his gaze and stared at the slowly spinning pages in the sky. "What's the use of asking? You don't need to know who he is," Ning Shu said to Yi Lin. "Where's the earthworm?" "Oh, it's sleeping," Yi Lin said. Ning Shu was speechless. The earthworm was living a decadent life as a mistress. Don't let its life be too easy. It deserved to be killed that day. The soul returned to the world on the 1st level. Congratulations, it was home. "Master, I'm leaving." Yi Lin didn't want to stay with Ning Shu and the others. "Go, be careful." Ning Shu waved his hand. Yi Lin pulled Bai Cici along as if there was a ghost chasing after them, and they disappeared without a trace. Ning Shu turned the handle of the umbrella and walked to the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder took 2 steps to the side, refusing to get close to her. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows and took 2 steps toward him. She had become so scary now. Even the judges were afraid of her? The Grand Elder's face was cold. You don't want your legs anymore. You're now a source of pollution. Don't come near me. Ning Shu was speechless. /BK. Chapter 2733. A source of pollution? She was a source of pollution? Ning Shu looked around. How could she be a source of pollution? But she didn't want to explain. Ning Shu played with the handle of the umbrella, and Senior Uncle stood aside again. The soul of the page was released, and the page slowly became smaller. The silver-haired man opened the book, and the page was inlaid in the book. He closed the book and said to Senior Uncle, "The situation is almost like what she said. Of course, the soul fluid also comes from this world." Ning Shu put his hands on his hips. She was a good person. After the investigation, she was even more upright. Ning Shu asked, "Is the inspection over? I didn't do it, right?" The three of them left the world of samsara and appeared in a restaurant in Time City. The man in the Cheongsam waved his fan and said to the three of them with a smile, "Do you want to eat something?" Senior Uncle sat down, and the silver-haired man also sat down. Ning Shu planned to leave. "You can eat whatever you want." Senior Uncle looked at Ning Shu and said, "You're treating." Ning Shu asked very calmly, "Why? You want to eat, and you want me to treat you?" "Service fee." Ning Shu was speechless. "It was you who wanted to investigate me and ask me to pay the service fee. In addition, you have to pay 20,000 merit points as service fee," the silver-haired man said. "I'm fine. I'm not unhappy." Ning Shu grinned. His personality was questioned, and he still had to pay and treat others to a meal. This was taking advantage of public service to fill his own pockets. Ning Shu said, "No money. I don't have money even if you beat me to death." If something had really happened, she was afraid that there would be nothing left of her now, and she would still be able to stand here and speak. Ning Shu took the menu, ordered some dishes, and said to the man in the Cheongsam, "Pack all these. Let these two order what they want. I didn't do anything wrong. If I don't treat you to a meal, I don't believe you can kill me." Ning Shu took the things and left, leaving the silver-haired man and Senior Uncle drinking tea at the table. The silver-haired man said, "Let's go. The tea is tasteless." The Grand Elder put down the cup and got up to leave. The silver-haired man also left. The Cheongsam man was speechless. After drinking 2 cups of tea, he left without eating. Ning Shu took the food back to the system space, opened it, and ate it while gritting his teeth. Looking at the gray surface of the umbrella, he asked 2333, "Am I a source of pollution? How could that be?" He had only exchanged 50,000 merit points for the black bone umbrella to prevent his soul from being tainted. 2333. "Oh, you mean the black bone umbrella? Under the umbrella, you won't be contaminated by the outside world. But the black bone umbrella automatically absorbs the surrounding pollutants, so there's quite a lot of them around you. So that's what happened." Ning Shu finished all the food and wasted his time being investigated. Nothing was found and he was given 20,000 merit points. Ning Shu's heart was in a mess. She wondered if he would go crazy in the future and interrogate her every day. Ding dong. The chatting system sounded. Ning Shu wiped his mouth and opened the chatting system. It was a message from the main system, saying that the source of the soul fluid was normal and removing the investigation on Ning Shu. At the same time, it urged Ning Shu to pay the 20,000 merit points. Ning Shu, just how poor were these people? How could they be so evil? Ning Shu paid the 20,000 merit points and planned to comprehend the spatial laws. When it came to the law of space, Ning Shu actually rejected it in her heart. The worse his grades, the more he didn't want to learn them. Ning Shu felt this way about spatial laws. Forget it, let's see how the person who commissioned this mission is doing. Ning Shu wanted to see how Jiangchen was doing. He didn't know if he had crawled out of the ground. He didn't know if grass would grow on his grave. Jiangchen was originally a drought demon. Where a drought demon was, not even a blade of grass would grow. But this time, when he met Jiangchen, such a situation didn't occur. It even rained. This meant that Jiangchen could control his own abilities. Ning Shu understood that Jiangchen had entered a meditative state. He wondered how his comprehension of spatial laws would be after he woke up. Ning Shu, no, I won't watch. He felt like he would be trampled by a genius. This feeling was very strong. Ning Shu refused in his heart, but his body obediently watched the video. Ning Shu really wanted to laugh at Feng Jia's behavior after she returned, because she found Yu Binglan's home and beat her up, leaving her with a bloody nose and a swollen face. She probably couldn't take it anymore. Yu Binglan was in so much pain that she couldn't even open her mouth to curse. Feng Jia knew that her daughter's life abroad wasn't good. She used to love her daughter dearly, but now she was in a restaurant, washing dishes day and night. How miserable. But they were separated by an ocean, so Feng Jia couldn't go find Qing Meng. Plus, Feng Jia didn't hate and hurt Qing Meng. It was good to suffer a little. Feng Jia looked at the things Ning Shu left behind and learned a lot. She used the opportunity to treat the people around her to memorize them as she practiced. The war was getting more and more intense. The newspapers and ambitious students were all calling for the invaders to be chased out of their country. Feng Jia used some dolls to practice dissection and sewing. She also volunteered at the hospital to learn some surgical methods. Combined with the books at home, she studied desperately. Occasionally, when there was a wound sewing, a doctor would let Feng Jia do it. In the beginning, Feng Jia's hands were trembling. After practicing more, she could sew wounds very quickly. After being able to treat wounds, Feng Jia ran to join the army. The army lacked people like Feng Jia who could treat the wounded. They were a woman army who could hold a gun and fight. She met the Dark Regiment commander again. When the regiment commander saw Feng Jia, his eyes lit up. "Comrade, I knew you had such high awareness. Your husband is dead, right? What a good death." Feng Jia, EXE? In response, Ning Shu wished that Feng Jia wouldn't die under the bayonets of the Japanese this time. Ning Shu looked at Jiangchen's bare grave. He hadn't woken up yet. Who knew how many years he would sleep for? If he meditated for a long time, by the time he woke up, the world would have changed and he wouldn't recognize it anymore. Ning Shu felt even more anxious. Even meditating for such a long time was enough to show how difficult it was to comprehend the spatial laws. Even if it was difficult, she still had to comprehend it. The world of the fourth level still needed to be connected to the world of reincarnation. Once it was connected to the world of reincarnation, the beastmen would disappear. There was no need for beastmen to be a soul transfer station anymore. Meaningless and deformed things would naturally disappear. But by the time she could build a spatial tunnel, who knew what year or month it would be? She felt stifled. Ning Shu took the letter to the spatial city to comprehend the spatial laws. In the darkness, Jiangchen's fingers twitched. He opened his eyes and sighed silently. "Next time I see him, I'll just chop him up. /BK." Chapter 2734. Ning Shu went to comprehend the rules with a solemn heart. When he was about to leave, he heard a notification from the chat system. Ning Shu was really afraid of hearing this sound. He felt that it was not a good thing. Every time this thing rang, it was not a good thing. Ning Shu opened the chat system. It was sent by the main system, asking the mission enforcers to sort out the number of missions they had done recently. It was time to check the number. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu said to 2333, "I should have enough." 2333, "What do you think?" Ning Shu, "Of course it's enough." 2333 said, "Of course it's not enough. But when the organization wants to make money, they can use any excuse to collect money. If you have the strength, you will be fined. If you don't, your life will be in danger." 2333, "I've recorded the number of missions you've done recently. If you don't have an advantage in numbers, you should have an advantage in completion rate. But you're a veteran. If you can't guarantee the completion rate, it's not right. If you do well, you should. If you don't do well, it's your problem." Ning Shu felt that he was going to lose money again. He lay on the sofa and waited for the results. He didn't do many missions in the first place. He spent too much time on the Nine Palace Mountain. He probably had a lot of missions piled up. Ning Shu couldn't argue about this. Missions had to be done, but those things also had to be done. There wasn't enough time. While waiting for the results, Ningshu asked 2333, "How's your strength now? You should have leveled up. I remember you absorbed a lot of systems." "I'm already a level 1 system." "Only level 1? How many systems did he have to absorb to reach level 1? Did he have to do a lot of system missions?" "I'm almost at level 1, 2333 said. It seemed that the system leveling up was much harder than the mission enforcers leveling up. How could there be so many system missions? If the system wanted to level up, it needed system missions. There were so many mission enforcers, and every mission enforcer had a system. It was probably because everyone was fighting to do the system missions." Ningshu felt that 2333 probably had a lot of system missions in his hand. Every time he agreed to do a system quest, 2333 would give him a quest. Ding dong. The sound of the chat system rang. Ningshu immediately sat up straight and opened the chat system. He saw the punishment list sent by the main system. Her name was not on the fine list. Ningshu was trembling with fear. Could it be that the name list was being erased? Ningshu looked at the list of names to be erased, but he couldn't find a name. Her name wasn't even there. What was going on? She wasn't punished? 2333 urged her to do missions every day. It seemed like there were many missions that she had not completed. She thought that she would be punished, but she did not expect that she would not be punished. What a surprise! "I'm not here. What's going on? 2333. Do you want to be fined and killed? That's not it. I know what I'm doing. Ever since the war, I haven't done many missions." She focused all her attention on repairing the world, working on the virtualization law, and the 9 Palace Mountains. 2333. Maybe it's because everyone completed fewer quests, so the punishment was set too low. Actually, not many people were erased this time, but many people were fined. Ningshu patted his chest. At least he had saved some money. Knowing that his name was not there, Ningshu was in the mood to look at the list of punishments. He saw Mei Ziqing's name on the list. Mei Ziqing? Why would Mei Ziqing be fined? He remembered that Mei Ziqing was very busy. She was always busy doing missions to earn money. Why would she be fined? It was strange. Speaking of which, he had not seen Mei Ziqing in a long time. Ever since Xiaohua came back, they had not even spoken in this period of time. Ningshu opened Mei Ziqing's chat window and asked her what was going on. Mei Ziqing was fined 100,000 merit points. Mei Ziqing was currently in debt. 100,000 merit points would be like adding frost to the snow. He was a little surprised by her situation. Mei Ziqing replied, sounding a little tired. She said, "I didn't pass the minimum standard in terms of completion." Indeed, it was the completion rate. Mei Ziqing should have completed enough quests. He did not expect her to be discounted in terms of completion rate. Mei Ziqing sounded apologetic. "I wanted to return the money to you, but I didn't expect this. I'll have to delay the repayment next time." Ningshu nodded and told her to return it when she had the money. He asked her about the construction of the world. Mei Ziqing said she was still short of 3 world sources. She was quite fast. She collected them quickly. Especially now, the worlds did not seem to produce world sources. In the future, there would be fewer and fewer world sources. Without a suitable world carrier, Ningshu would not build a world. He would waste 7 world sources and build a world that he did not know if it could still produce life. To build a world, he had to choose a better world carrier. For example, the world tree. But it was rare. It was also rare in the market. He encountered it once, but because he did not have enough money, he missed it. For now, he would use the world of reincarnation to keep himself alive. With the world of reincarnation, no matter what happened, she would not be killed immediately. Not being fined, Ningshu was in a good mood. The chatting system rang again. It was a video sent by the main system. In the video, a man was tied up and dropped in midair. His surroundings were dark. There was an oil lamp under the man's feet. The oil lamp flickered and roasted the man's feet. Ningshu, the main system must have been poisoned. Why did it send such a shameful video? Ningshu wanted to turn off the video, but found that it was also poisoned. He could not turn it off. The man's feet were being roasted by 2 oil lamps. His expression was pained and his face was twisted. Now, 532 will be punished by burning his soul for 10,000 years. The main system released the crimes of 532. There were many crimes. There were several pages. The worst was that he wanted to reverse the universe. He was so crazy that he killed all life in his own world. It seemed like he was conducting some experiment. Not only that, but he also secretly made 2 worlds empty. Ning Shu, he must be crazy. Ning Shu looked at the man in the video. He had short hair and black ear studs. He looked arrogant. Stupid. The man was being roasted. Although he was in great pain, his expression was stupid and arrogant. 2333 shook his head and said, "He resisted too early. It's obvious that the organization is using him as an example to others." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. "So you feel sorry for him?" "There's nothing to feel sorry for. He will die sooner or later. But this kind of mission enforcer is quite rich. Killing one can make a lot of money." 2333. There is no organization. These mission enforcers, including the army, are ordinary people. Their souls enter the world of reincarnation and experience the rebirth of ordinary people. /BK. Chapter 2735. Just like how ordinary people reincarnate over and over again. In the end, their souls disappear and they become mission enforcers. They have the opportunity to become stronger. When they become stronger, they will naturally not be willing to be restrained and enslaved. They will definitely resist. But this guy's strength is not enough. Obviously, he is not at this level. Stupid. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and stared at the man in the video. Such a small flame, but it made him suffer. So there are quite a lot of people in the organization who resist? Of course there are. They have some strength. If they want freedom, they will be suppressed by force for as long as they can. 2333 said casually. At their level, they were not really bored to kill people. They also had a purpose. Obviously, they were pursuing great power. However, as 2333 said, their strength was not enough to resist. This was like fire was a special kind of lamp oil. When it burned the soul, it felt like the whole body was wrapped in fire. It would produce a suffocating and painful feeling. Like ordinary people, they would be burned alive by fire for 10,000 years. This punishment was clearly for some people in the organization. Now that she received this video, she was also one of the people who was warned. Ning Shu's heart was as still as water. He wanted to turn off the video, but found that he could not. When the progress bar is finished, you should be able to turn it off. 2333 said, in fact, this kind of person is quite stupid. He will be caught doing this sooner or later. It's a little annoying. It's especially disgusting. When someone kills a chicken or a few ants, he wants to judge them. 2333 said bored. Ning Shu. You mean Taishu? Who else but him is the judge? When someone kills a few chickens, ducks, and pigs in the circle, he wants to judge people. Isn't it strange that he wants people to pay with their lives? Isn't it disgusting? He has nothing better to do. He's sick. Ning Shu, he killed creatures of a plane. They are creatures in his world. Why did he suddenly kill them? They are all ants. So what if he killed them? In this case, he killed a lot of chickens, ducks, and fish. He killed a lot of ants. Have you ever seen a butcher pay with his life for a pig? Ning Shu, that's human life. What human life? Heaven and earth are heartless, treating all living things like straw dogs. At that level, humans are no different from pigs, dogs, cows, and sheep. Forget it, I'm too lazy to talk to you. Actually, I'm more annoyed with people like you. Would you be willing to pay with your life for countless ants? The judges have always done this kind of thing. They destroyed an ant's nest and then punished you. Are they crazy? Ning Shu was speechless. I don't know who's sick. All living beings were said to be equal, but they were not. Humans were bound by the law, not other creatures. Humans were not allowed to kill people, but they were allowed to kill pigs, dogs, cows, and sheep. Anyway, She didn't get punished this time. She wouldn't kill someone out of boredom. Therefore, she didn't want to waste time arguing with 2333. It was better for him to comprehend the spatial laws and try to pick up trash as soon as possible. The video was still playing. Ning Shu did not want to watch it at all. He wanted to comprehend the spatial laws after reaching the spatial laws. He wanted to lengthen the spatial passageway so that he could connect to the 4th level as soon as possible. Ning Shu was really annoyed. There were no benefits at all. If there were benefits, it was that these souls entered the world of reincarnation and jumped into the rebirth pool. It could nourish the world of reincarnation. However, it would speed up the birth of the disaster beast. Because there were more souls entering the world of reincarnation and more souls jumping into the rebirth pool, there would be more toxins. The disaster beast would be born very quickly. She didn't even have the bones to deal with the disaster beast. One Li Si would be useless. Therefore, the souls entering the world of reincarnation might not necessarily be a benefit. Moreover, she had to tirelessly construct the passageway that connected the two worlds. She was really a holy mother of death. The more Ning Shu comprehended, the more annoyed he became. He didn't comprehend anything, but he was annoyed. He directly gave up on comprehending and returned to the system space. The candle-burning shameful play was still playing. Ning Shu couldn't be bothered to watch it. He went to the city lord's residence to sleep. He didn't care if the sky was falling or the earth was sinking. He didn't want to do anything now. He was indescribably annoyed. Sometimes it was annoying to persist, especially when there was no end to it. When there was no reward, this kind of persistence was even more tiring. Ning Shu laid on the chaise lounge and absorbed the energy of the city of wood. The refreshing feeling could sweep away the haze in his heart. Ning Shu slept for a very long time. He was not in a hurry to complete the mission. Anyway, he had already checked the number of missions. He was not in a hurry to complete them now. After sleeping in the city of wood, Ning Shu returned to the system space. The candle-burning video was already closed. So what if these things were released? It was annoying to watch. It especially affected one's mood. Punish them however you like. Ning Shu went to the 3rd level of the 9-Palace Mountain. In this world, Ning Shu could clearly feel the evolution of the rules. He didn't feel anything in the other worlds, but it was obvious in this world. The other worlds had already stabilized, like a tree that had taken shape. In this world, it was like a seed. It sprouted green leaves, grew leaves, and grew into a big tree. The process was very obvious. After squeezing into the 3rd level, he saw that it was no longer green. Some places had turned yellow and slowly drifted down. Some places had trees that were still green, and the temperature was different from place to place. Ning Shu walked around in this world while invisible. He collected strands of pure power of faith and put them away. This power of faith was so pure that it could be seen with the eyes. An unexpected gain. A purely unexpected gain. Ning Shu also didn't expect that the savages would worship him. Although this faith would slowly fade with time. Ning Shu felt the rules in this world. This world was slowly becoming complete, so it was no longer her turn to act. Ning Shu lay on the clouds and looked down at this world. All kinds of living beings were under her gaze. At least this world earned her 20 million merit points. She should help take care of it. I wonder what the 5th level of the world was like. There were still 5 more worlds to explore. Not many, just 4. The 9th level was a deformed world of reincarnation. If a spatial passage could be built, would this world of reincarnation also be connected to the 1st level of reincarnation? Would the souls in the 1st level be able to enter the 9th level of reincarnation? But if it was connected, more people would be needed to guard the reincarnation pool. She had no one now. Ning Shu thought about the skeletons munching on the merit points and felt a chill down her spine. How much money would it take to raise these skeletons? Terrifying. But without these fellows, what if something happened to the world of reincarnation? Her head hurt. Ning Shu smacked her head. Wasn't she here to comprehend the laws? Why did she talk about the skeletons? /BK. Chapter 2736. There were too many things going on in his mind. Ning Shu carefully sensed the laws of this world. He had a faint feeling that it was much easier to comprehend the laws of space. Dark, thunder, and rain, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, time and history. Ning Shu looked at the moth that had an extremely short lifespan and died not long after breaking out of its cocoon. Birth, old age, illness, and death, the cycle repeated. There was life and there was death. Ning Shu lay on the clouds and heard someone chanting beside his ear. The voice was strange. It was probably the barbarians offering sacrifices. When Ning Shu looked down, those people were the size of ants and were jumping around. Hearing these voices, Ning Shu's heart unexpectedly calmed down and became ethereal. He closed his eyes and all kinds of scenes flashed before his eyes. These scenes were all fragments of the barbarians' lives. When a child was born, they would kneel down and worship. When they went out to hunt, they would pray. When someone was injured, they would still pray. At this time, people had not learned how to use herbs to treat their wounds and could only place their hopes on the unknown gods. Naked women would find stones that had been washed beautifully by the river and place them in front of the altar to offer sacrifices. When someone died, their corpses would be eaten by their clansmen. This was a kind of sacred burial. If they ate the flesh of their loved ones, then their loved ones would live forever in their bodies. Countless scenes appeared in front of Ning Shu frame by frame. There were barbarians, young birds pecking at eggshells, and small fish that were so transparent that they could not be seen swimming in the river. Young creatures learned the instincts of survival with difficulty. It was as if something had taken root and sprouted in his heart. This was the power of life. This was life, fragile and tenacious. Generation after generation died and reproduced, using special methods to survive. Life was so grand and distinct. The anxiety and discomfort in Ning Shu's heart was soothed. Ordinary creatures lived with such difficulty and distinct life. As long as she was not killed, she would have eternal life. She had nothing to be dissatisfied with. Ning Shu's current state, to put it bluntly, was that after seeing so many other creatures living such miserable lives, he felt that he was not so miserable. Miserable, seeing that he was even more miserable, he felt a lot better. So I'm not the most miserable one. The web between his thumb and forefinger was slightly itchy. Ning Shu looked down as if he had just woken up from a dream. The water droplet on the leaf of the woodlaw imprint became larger and larger. In the end, it detached from the leaf and floated in front of Ning Shu. It rotated slightly and was especially bright and translucent. There was a kind of boundless and endless power that was seeping out. Although Ning Shu did not know what was going on, he did not know what was happening. And Ning Shu's hand, and the water droplet avoided Ning Shu's hand and crashed into Ning Shu's glabella. The force was very strong. It was so painful that it felt as if a nail had pierced between her eyebrows. It was so painful that Ning Shu directly fell from the clouds. Moreover, a surge of energy was about to explode in his body, as if he was being torn apart. After being crushed, they seemed to be glued back together. After the pain, there was a moment of comfort. After the comfort, there was even more pain. After the pain, there was comfort again. Ning Shu didn't know how many times she had done this. It was so painful that she almost couldn't maintain her consciousness. It hurt so much. Anyway, Ning Shu was tortured to the point of losing his temper. He hoped that the pain would pass quickly. Otherwise, he would not be able to bear it. It was too painful. His soul was about to collapse. Ning Shu's red clothes were slowly fading. Finally, it became an ethereal white. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain. In the end, the pain weakened and was replaced by a feeling of comfort. Ning Shu let out a long breath. It was finally over. He was too lazy to comprehend the law. He lifted his skirt and rushed back into the system space. He looked at himself in the mirror. His glabella was like a big diamond. It was especially shiny. It was not dazzling. In any case, from every angle, it was dazzling. Ning Shu touched his skin. It was no longer pale. Instead, it was full of vitality and ethereal. I'm beautiful again. 2333. Fuck, where did you go? Your body actually has the aura of the law of life. Rules? Aren't they laws? Ning Shu had some guesses, but he did not expect them to be rules. How should I put it? There are some differences between laws and rules. In general, rules and rules are better. Ning Shu, I put my hands on my waist. I'm so awesome. Ning Shu touched the water droplet between his eyebrows. He felt like a blind cat that caught a dead mouse. But at least there were rules. For what? She did not make any progress in the law of space. She spent a lot of time comprehending the law of space, but her progress was the slowest. Ning Shu asked excitedly, "Then can I go pick up trash now?" With the rules, one would be able to pick up plane fragments. 2333, I don't know. Don't ask me. Ning Shu hummed a little song. He touched the water droplet between his eyebrows and looked at himself in the mirror. You're so beautiful, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful. Ning Shu lifted his skirt and sat down. The only bad thing was that the skirt was too long. It was like dragging the floor. If he was not careful, he would step on the skirt. The feeling of the skirt was also different. It was silky smooth and indescribably comfortable. The skirt was cinched at the waist. The style was pretty, but it was a little long. She was short. Ning Shu felt that she was even shorter when wearing such a long skirt. What should she do? Ning Shu felt that life was a joke. She had just used her soul origin to exchange for a star stone with Fragrant Wind Guy. Instead, she was reported by Fragrant Wind Guy. Now she had a chance to pick up trash. Ning Shu suddenly realized something and asked 2333, "It won't affect my mission, right? I'm still a soul now, right?" "It's a soul, but it has some life force. It's good for the client's body," 2333 said casually. It was good that she could do the mission. If she couldn't, she would definitely be fined. Ning Shu was excited. She really wanted to know if she could pick up fragments now. She opened the chat system and clicked on Taishu. Well, it was still blocked. Fragrant Wind Guy. Damn it. He had just reported her, and now she still had to find him. Ning Shu felt scared just thinking about it. No matter what, she had to report him once in the future. Ning Shu, I'm applying to pick up trash. Fragrant Wind Guy. Is there something wrong with your brain? Ning Shu. I've realized the rules. I'm applying to pick up trash. Is there no broken plane now? Fragrant Wind Guy. There are billions of planes. Every day there are problems with planes. Hundreds of millions of people died every day. Planes were the same as people. Ning Shu was very active. Then I'm applying to pick up fragments and contribute light and heat to the plane. I'll be a volunteer. Fragrant Wind Guy, are you sure? There's actually a reward every time. /BK. Chapter 2737. Ning Shu. It's good to get paid. That will make me more motivated. Fragrant Wind Man. Can you really pick up the fragments? Don't be like this time. Are you here to fish in troubled waters? I'm not lying to you. I'm not lying this time either. Didn't I also store a living world? Fuck, was her character so untrustworthy? Fragrant Wind Man, then come over. Ning Shu, the space tunnel I'm building now is very short. Help me. Fragrant Wind Man, hee, why should I help you? I'll give you all the rewards for picking up the fragments. Ning Shu was now eager to know if she could pick up the fragments. Fragrant Wind Man, okay, follow the tunnel. A space tunnel appeared in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu walked in and walked for a long time. Ning Shu was very jealous. She could actually build such a long tunnel. And in such a short time, she had built such a long tunnel. Ning Shu wanted to beat the ground and cry. Why was she so slow in comprehending the space laws? She was even slower than a snail. So desperate. Ning Shu held the black bone umbrella and followed the tunnel to the place where the plane was broken. All kinds of fragments were floating in the air. Many people were busy picking up the fragments. The plane was so big and there were so many fragments. Except for some fragments that didn't have any rules, the other fragments had to be picked up manually one by one. She was really drunk. Was there no advanced method? Fragrant Wind Man, holding an umbrella, do you think you're here for a vacation? Why do you look like this? Fragrant Wind Man didn't look good. He felt that he had been tricked by this wretched girl again. What? Grand Uncle frowned. Why did you call me here again? Fragrant Wind Man quickly waved his hand. She said she can pick up the fragments. It has nothing to do with me. Grand Uncle glanced at Ning Shu, who was playing with the umbrella, and then looked back at the water droplet between her eyebrows. Ning Shu pointed at her eyebrows. Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? Grand Uncle chuckled. Ning Shu closed the umbrella and looked at the floating fragments. He was a little nervous. He wiped the non-existent sweat from his palms and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He slowly reached out his hand towards the floating shard and grabbed it. Then he used too much strength and hit his head with the shard. Ning Shu was speechless. Who knew it would be so light? Previously he had fought with all his might, but it wouldn't budge at all. Now that he held it in his hand, it felt as light as a bubble. Ning Shu suddenly laughed. She could pick up the trash on the ground. He picked up the trash in his pocket and slowly approached Grand Elder. Grand Elder was dealing with the star stone embedded in the fragments. Ning Shu reached out to touch the star stone. The Grand Elder turned his head and looked at her indifferently. Ning Shu smiled. I'll handle it for you. Go to the side and pick up the fragments. The Grand Elder directly refused Ning Shu. Ning Shu, I'll help you. Grand Elder looked at her. His gold-rimmed glasses slid down and stopped at the bridge of his nose. He squinted at her. Go away. Ning Shu dragged the trash bag to the side and picked it up. She looked at the star stone as she picked it up. There were so many star stones. Ning Shu picked it up next to the star stone. She couldn't control herself. As long as she saw the star stone, she thought in her heart that if she had so many star stones, she wouldn't have to worry about the law of nothingness for a long time. I love star stones. Women love this shiny stone. Ning Shu tied her skirt into a pocket. She really wanted to put such a star stone in it. Right, there was a space in the ring. Half of her reward will be deducted, Grand Elder said to Fragrant Wind. Fragrant Wind Guy immediately glared at Ning Shu. Half of the money was deducted from him. This guy had said before that all her rewards would be given to him this time. Fragrant Wind grabbed the clothes on Ning Shu's back and dragged her away. I said, don't think about going over there like a thief. Ning Shu, I didn't. Fragrant Wind pointed to his eyes with 2 fingers. Your titanium dog eyes are as bright as lasers. If you do this again, don't look for me next time. All right, you have to compensate me for the missing half of my reward this time. Ning Shu, I don't have to come next time. When I can build a space channel, I won't have to beg you. Once Ning Shu's feet drifted uncontrollably to the star stone, Fragrant Wind kicked her back. He didn't want to deduct half of his reward again. Why was this damned woman so worrisome? It seemed that he couldn't snatch food from the tiger's mouth. He could only wait until the plane was inlaid and then receive 1 or 2 drops of liquid star stone. Ning Shu picked up the trash very quickly. The pieces that were heavy before were now as light as plastic bottles and bubbles. They weren't heavy at all. Ning Shu carried the garbage bag and ran around. She rummaged through it and found that there were fewer pieces. Her actions attracted a lot of attention. What kind of rule did she comprehend? She picked it up so quickly. There were high and low rules, and so were rules. Ning Shu picked up a full bag and tied it up. Then she took the bag again and started picking. She thought that if she finished picking it up earlier, she could receive 2 more drops of star stone when connecting the planes. Since there was no way to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, she could only pick up the leftovers. Grand Elder removed all the star stones from the fragments and melted them. The melted star rocks were especially viscous, and they were sparkling. To smear the star stone in its sticky state on the bit wall, it would stick if it was smeared with glue. Ning Shu hurriedly packed the trash bag and waited under the plane crack for the liquid star stones to fall. With the help of a large number of troops, the planes were pulled together. When the planes were squeezed, liquid star stones were squeezed out from the edges. Ning Shu hurriedly caught them. There were large droplets and small droplets. Ning Shu caught 3 drops this time. The harvest was not bad. Each drop was the size of a football. She was happy. When the star stone liquid gradually dried up, everyone let go. The planes were firmly attached. With the things in hand, Ning Shu planned to slip away. She said to Fragrant Wind, I'll give you the remaining half of the reward when I go back. I'll go first. Fragrant wind. Where are you going? It's not over yet. Isn't it already done? It's not like there's only one place. When it's done here, we'll move on to the next place. Ning Shu. Then when will it be done? I don't know. Fragrant wind shrugged. There were too many planes and there were problems with them all the time. Ning Shu, was she going to keep picking up trash? Don't you want star stones? When connecting planes, there are always some leftovers. Ning Shu, this can't tempt me at all. I just want to know when I can leave. You can't leave until you're done. Fragrant wind chuckled. Come and go as you wish. Do you think it's a market? Ning Shu felt that picking up trash wasn't so beautiful. If she couldn't leave, she could only follow along. /BK. Chapter 2738. Ning Shu thought she could leave after getting some star stones, but she still had to pick up trash. This, she didn't want to. I have to do a mission. The key was that she couldn't leave because she couldn't build a space tunnel to leave. Her heart was stuffed. She used to look forward to picking up trash. How did it become so bad? Ning Shu walked to the end of the team with the black bone umbrella. Sister wants to go back. I don't want to pick up any more. Senior uncle built a space tunnel. Ning Shu stood at the entrance of the tunnel. And he waved at Ning Shu. What are you doing? Hurry up and follow me. Thank you so much for your kindness. Ning Shu walked into the space tunnel. This space tunnel was built very big. Jealousy made me unrecognizable. Ning Shu was jealous of all the people who could build space tunnels. Through the space tunnel, they arrived at the place where the plane was damaged. There was already an army controlling the situation of the plane. There were many fragments floating in the air. There were also large particles of dust. This kind of dust would hit the plane at a high speed. If it hit the plane, it would cause a big collision. It would cause the extinction of all the creatures in the plane. The most famous one was the extinction of the dinosaurs. They died in a big collision. A meteorite hit the ground and caused a huge impact. Originally, when the plane was damaged, everything in the plane would be annihilated into small particles due to the power of the explosion. These particles would drift to other planes. They would fall to the ground and merge with the soil. I've already collected the creatures in the plane. Now we need to find a world to store these creatures, a man said to Senior Uncle when he saw him. Senior Uncle nodded coldly. Just find someone to store them. Senior Uncle turned his head and saw Ning Shu at the end of the team. He raised his eyebrows. Yo, when did a little girl come to the team? She's willing to suffer this hardship? Ning Shu looked up and saw a gentle man. In the organization, Ning Shu had never seen such a gentle man. This man's eyebrows were gentle, gentler than a woman's. Ning Shu was used to the division of people in the organization. He felt that it was better not to jump to conclusions too early. One moment they might look as gentle as water, but in the next moment, they might turn into medicine, 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 check it out. Let's have a set of pancakes. He didn't come here on his own accord. He wanted to steal something, the Grand Elder said casually. Uncle Zhang smiled, giving off a warm feeling like spring. Which one of us came here willingly? This is Uncle Tai. He's a carpenter, the Grand Elder said to Ning Shu. Carpenter? Ning Shu immediately smiled and said, Hello, I'm Ning Shu. Those who were able to appear here were no small fries. Carpentry and whatnot were the same as prefect class prefects. Perhaps it was just a hobby of theirs. After all, prefect class prefects were also gardeners. Uncle Zhang looked at Ning Shu from head to toe. His gaze was fixed on the water droplet makeup between Ning Shu's eyebrows. Ning Shu touched the space between her eyebrows and said, Pretty, right? Uncle Zhang nodded. Not bad. Pretty. Ning Shu elbowed Fragrant Wind Man next to him and asked, Who is this big boss? All the weapons and props came from him and his subordinates, Fragrant Wind Man said. So this was what carpentry was all about. Ning Shu immediately gave Uncle Zhang, who was as gentle as water, 2 words, profiteer. The gentler he smiled, the fiercer he was. Ning Shu asked again, Is he running the system exchange mall? He and the main system are running it, Fragrant Wind Man said. Why are you asking these questions? Didn't you see so many fragments? Hurry up and pick them up. What are you chatting about? Ning Shu glanced at him in disdain. He took the trash bag and glanced at Uncle Zhang, who was talking to the Grand Elder. Uncle Zhang's department should be very rich. There were so many props. In addition to the System Exchange Mall, there were also merchants in the virtual space and the law space. If they needed to buy goods, they would look for them. There was a big fat sheep to be plucked, but they caught the poor mission enforcers and took their wool. Were they stupid? Those props were so expensive. Wouldn't it be better to collect more taxes? Why did they catch mission enforcers and exploit them? Just the umbrella in her hand was 50,000 merit points. If she relied on missions, she wouldn't have so many merit points. Ning Shu basically didn't get much merit points from doing missions. If he didn't have some savings, he might not even be able to afford an umbrella. Uncle Zhang turned to look at Ning Shu. Why are you staring at me with such resentful eyes? I owe you money. Ning Shu shook his head. No. Uncle Zhang smiled, said a few words to the Grand Elder, and left in a flash. Ning Shu picked up a fragment with a star stone inlaid on it. He hurriedly wanted to put it away and get the star stone when he went back. In fact, it didn't matter whether he got it or not. Anyway, if he threw it down, the virtual law could swallow anything. Plain fragments were a piece of cake. Ning Shu stuffed the fragment into the messen space and looked around. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he breathed a sigh of relief and began to pick up the trash like a dog playing in the snow. The trash bag had a lot of space. It looked no different from an ordinary trash bag, but it could hold a lot of fragments. Ning Shu was proud. He grabbed the fragments and threw them into the bag. His hands were nimble and quick. The sooner he finished, the sooner he would be liberated. He thought that he would be done after picking up once, but he didn't expect to have to pick up more. Moreover, picking up trash was quite boring. There wasn't much skill involved. He picked up the trash and threw it into the trash bag. He used to think that picking up trash was extremely difficult, but now he felt it was very boring. Ning Shu felt like he was now a worker on an assembly line, doing the same actions. After filling a bag, Ning Shu tied the bag and continued to pick up. This time, 2 planes were broken. One plane was very big and would produce countless fragments. In fact, he didn't need to care about these fragments. However, if he didn't clean them up, it would be like leaving scissors and gauze in the body. Grand Uncle glanced at the happy Ning Shu and took out the fragment inlaid with the star stone from her messen space. He dealt with the star stone on it and then put the fragment back into her messen space. Ning Shu was still like a mad dog. She didn't notice anything. Of course, with her little power of space law, she couldn't notice that someone had built a space passage and taken away her messen space star stone. Fragrant Wind looked at Ning Shu with some pity. Stupid. Ning Shu walked past like a gust of wind. Ning Shu stuffed the fragments she passed into the trash bag. She saw that Grand Uncle had dealt with another mountain-like star stone. The star stone was shining so brightly that it was almost blinding. Her legs couldn't help but walk toward the star stone. Anyway, she had already obtained a fragment, and the star stone on it was not small. She had already obtained a fragment, and the star stone on it was not small. A panel appeared in front of Grand Uncle. It seemed that someone had sent him a message. And you take care of this, Grand Uncle said to Fragrant Wind. Fragrant Wind was commanding the army to fix the plane. Hearing Grand Uncle's words, he nodded. Then Grand Uncle disappeared. Chapter 2739. And he began to deal with the star stones on the fragments. Ning Shu immediately walked over and touched the star stones. And he said irritably, "Are you that hungry? Don't make trouble for me. If there's less of this, I'll be the one eating." Anyway, he doesn't know how much there is here, Ning Shu said. Fragrant Wind Man looked at her expressionlessly. Even if I scan my memory, I can remember where there are fragments. He can't remember. When the time comes to connect the planes, you'll get some scraps and annoy people for no reason. Don't you think you're annoying? I'm asking you, don't you think you're annoying? Ning Shu asked while picking up the trash. You can deal with star stones too. Fragrant Wind Man glanced at Ning Shu. I find that you're a very talkative person. Don't talk to me. Ning Shu saw that Fragrant Wind Man was so irritable that smoke was about to come out of his head. Who was the talkative one? Ning Shu went to pick up the trash. If he didn't want to talk, then so be it. Fragrant Wind Man was obviously not very good at this kind of delicate work. He was slow to process, and some of the star stones on the fragments were not cleaned. At this time, someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder needed to remind him. The fragments made by Fragrant Wind Man were obviously different from those made by Senior Grand Uncle. Senior Grand Uncle's fragments were scraped clean. Obsessive-compulsive disorder. Fragrant Wind Man's fragments had a shallow layer of star stones on them. Ning Shu asked, "You don't need these fragments, right?" There were still some star stones on them. Although there weren't many little drops made an ocean. It could be considered a very large star stone. Fragrant Wind Man cursed, "Didn't I tell you to go away?" Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu picked up the fragments. He was too lazy to care about the irritable and he just stayed by the side. After he dealt with the star stones on them, he put away the fragments with the remaining star stones. The plain wall was actually not thick. If it was really thick, there wouldn't be so many transmigrators. And his head was sweating. Ning Shu couldn't help but say, "Slow down. I'd rather fuck someone than do this." And he couldn't help but say, "P." It didn't take long for the Grand Elder to return. And he let out a long sigh and hurriedly left. Ning Shu also dragged the garbage bag and left. If he followed and he could still get some leftovers, but Senior Grand Uncle, forget it. If he could make it clean, the shards could be used as mirrors. The Grand Uncle glanced around. "Where are the fragments you dealt with?" And he immediately pointed at Ning Shu. "She took it away." Ning Shu was speechless. And this fellow, really did not have the demeanor of a soldier at all. Where was his unyielding spirit? The first thing he did was to shift the blame. "Fuck your sister." Ning Shu said directly, "I saw that he didn't clean it up and there were still some star stones left on it, so I put the pieces away. Come on, let's hurt each other." The Grand Elder glanced at the two of them and looked at he sharply. "You're using this method to benefit her." "That's not it," Ning Shu retorted. He was the one who didn't handle it cleanly. "Impossible. Am I that kind of person?" And he also retorted. He had always handled it this way, and that little star stones were insignificant. It was just a thin little bit. Only that fellow was so vicious that he wouldn't let go of such a small amount of star stones. The Grand Elder did not ask Ning Shu to hand over the fragments and continue to deal with the star stones. Ning Shu scampered away to pick up the trash. Next was connecting the planes. Ning Shu caught a few drops of fist-sized star stones. He rushed to the next location. Ning Shu carried his waist. How long would it take? Again and again. Was he going to pick it up until the end of time? She had to go back to do the mission. She had to go back to comprehend the space laws. She had to go back to see the world of reincarnation. Was the reincarnation pool going to give birth to another disaster beast? She had a lot of things to do. Even Ning Shu felt a little tired. The other big shots also slowed down their speed of picking up the trash. Although the plane fragments were not heavy, after picking them up hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of times, they could no longer feel their existence. After the Grand Elder dealt with the star stones, he would also pick up the fragments in the trash bag. His speed was neither fast nor slow. He picked them up at a constant speed. He didn't look tired at all. After the plane fragments were inlaid, he went to the next place. Ning Shu already wanted to lie on the ground. The life of picking up trash that she longed for should not be so unbearable. Ning Shu asked the Grand Elder directly, "I'm exhausted. When will it end?" The Grand Elder said, "When this is dealt with and the next batch of people is changed, you can go." Ning Shu was a little more energetic. She picked up the trash with the bag. Before, she moved like a crazy rabbit. Now, she just wanted to be a motionless fairy. Fortunately, this was the last one. Everyone also needed to rest, although they were souls. Ning Shu looked at the other big shots who were picking up the trash. They all looked tired. Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief. She thought she was the only one who felt a little tired. The others were also tired. Ning Shu felt less lonely. Everyone's speed of picking up the trash slowed down. In the end, most of the remaining fragments were picked up by the Grand Elder alone. And they were all relatively large fragments. It was not so tiring to carry the small fragments. Everyone picked up the small fragments. Perhaps it was because of the wood laws that Ning Shu felt tired, but it was still within the limits of what she could bear. After finishing, the Grand Elder said to everyone, "Go back and apply for the reward from the main system." Got it. The big shots who were picking up the trash responded sparsely. Then Ning Shu sadly found that the big shots around her disappeared in an instant, leaving her here alone. She was so lonely. The Grand Elder looked at her condescendingly. "If you don't go, keep picking." In the face of his condescending gaze, Ning Shu could only comfort herself. Everyone couldn't raise their heads in front of her. They all had to look down at her. Without learning how to build a space channel, they couldn't go back. Ning Shu looked at He. Did this guy have any self-awareness? Her reward for working so hard was all his. The Grand Elder opened the chat system. Obviously, he was contacting someone. He probably wanted to find someone to pick up the trash. "I'm leaving. I'll give you the reward when I go back," Ning Shu said to He. And he nodded and made a space channel. Ning Shu ran away. She felt that picking up trash still needed to be carefully considered. It was not like picking up trash once was enough. She would tire herself to death before changing to the next batch. She naively thought that picking up trash for a while was enough. Last time, he probably saw that she was useless standing there, so he let her go. Back in the system space, Ning Shu lay on the sofa and opened the chat system to apply for the reward for picking up trash from the main system. She didn't know how much the reward was. Not long after the application, she was notified that 50,000 merit points had been credited. 50,000? Ning Shu stood up from the sofa directly. Half of the reward was deducted. So, it was 100,000 merit points? Ning Shu suddenly felt her heart ache. Should she give 50,000 merit points to Fragrant Wind? What should she do if she suddenly regretted it? Chapter 2740. When Ning Shu was still struggling between money and character, Fragrant Wind sent a message asking her to pay. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Ning Shu was speechless. She had no choice but to pay. It was only 50,000 merit points. She had plenty of money. Luckily, it wasn't 100,000. Luckily, half of it was deducted. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to bear it. Now that she knew that she could pick up fragments, she wouldn't lack stellar stones in the future. Rather than spending a few 100,000 to buy stellar stones from Fragrant Wind, she might as well pick up trash occasionally and get some scraps. In this way, 50,000 merit points really weren't much. Although Ning Shu gave him the money readily, she couldn't help but mock him. "Are you so poor? You're chasing after such a small amount of money." "Fragrant Wind, what can I do? I'm so desperate. You're only giving me a small amount of military funds. I have to think of other ways to make my soldiers better. I need money for all kinds of rewards and punishments." When Ning Shu heard him say that, she couldn't mock him anymore. She could only laugh it off. Since he had already said so, what else could she say? He was indeed quite poor. And those souls were the same as the bones of an abyssal prefect. They needed merit points to build the golden body of merit and strengthen their souls. Merit points should be the most indestructible and sturdy existence. How much money would it take to build such a huge army? TSK. Next time, if you want to pick up trash, look for me. Fragrant Wind, who received the money, said straightforwardly. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. Picking up trash was so tiring, yet she still had to pay Fragrant Wind. She was asking for a beating. If it wasn't for a few stellar stones, would she have to be so miserable? Ning Shu closed the chat system and took the Messen space into the peerless martial arts. She threw the space fragments one by one into the law of nothingness. The fragments were directly swallowed and assimilated by the law of nothingness. However, the stellar stones could contain the law of nothingness. She remembered that she took a stellar stone with a big inlaid surface. It was secretly stuffed into the Messen space. Ning Shu looked around and found that the piece was gone. There was only a fragment that was very clean. There wasn't even a speck of stellar stone on it. It was so clean. Apart from the judge, it couldn't be someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder. Was this a scam? Not only did he take it, he even put the scraped pieces back into her mess in space. Ning Shu expressionlessly threw the shard into the law of nothingness. She actually thought that she had succeeded. What kind of perverted mentality was this? She was happy for nothing. Ning Shu took out the ruby ring and shot a few rays of time at the law of nothingness. However, the surface of the law of nothingness did not even ripple. Ning Shu sighed and sat down, leaning on the big star stone. He even used a small bottle of soul origin to buy this thing. Ning Shu touched the water droplet between his eyebrows. This was his biggest gain this time. No matter what, as he grew stronger and stronger, he would have more and more things. Ning Shu raised his hand and looked at the law of wood imprint between his thumb and forefinger. The water droplets had already disappeared. He wondered if this thing had any other uses other than picking up trash. Ning Shu pointed at the law of nothingness. "I'll deal with you sooner or later." Her world had been repaired. Once she dealt with the law of nothingness, her world would return to normal. By then, she would be a person with a world. Ning Shu lifted her dress and returned to the system space. She took the black bone umbrella and opened the black hole to enter the world of reincarnation. Ning Shu really wanted to tie the dress around her waist. It was too dirty. Especially in the world of reincarnation, the ground was filled with sand and dust. The Thunder Qilin used its fat butt to block the hole, making Ning Shu speechless. She felt that this fellow was blocking her. After entering the world of reincarnation, Ning Shu held the black bone umbrella and walked to the reincarnation pool. Beside the reincarnation pool, black flowers bloomed. They swayed in the wind and gave off a mesmerizing fragrance. It was the smell of happiness. It attracted souls to jump into the reincarnation pool. Li Si sat beside the reincarnation pool. When he saw Ning Shu, he did not dare to recognize her. "Great Aunt." Ning Shu nodded. "What's wrong?" Li Si was speechless. Was Great Aunt addicted to changing clothes? She changed clothes for fun. Souls couldn't be changed, right? Since young master died, he had been wearing the same clothes. However, Great Aunt seemed different from normal souls. Ning Shu asked, "Are there any calamity beasts?" Li Si shook his head. "No, there is no movement. I don't see any." "Then, are there many souls that jump in?" Li Si hesitated and said, "What is a lot and what is a little?" He did not know what the standard was. Sometimes, there would be no souls jumping in for a long time. Sometimes, they would jump in a bunch. He really did not know what was a lot and what was a little. Ning Shu took out 2 merit grains and passed it to him. "Guard it well." Li Si hurriedly took the gold nugget. After eating it, he felt his body become lighter. It was definitely something good. Ning Shu instructed, "Guard it well. If there is anything, inform me immediately. Especially when calamity beasts are born." Li Si said seriously, "I will remember." Ning Shu was not worried about Li Si. In the future, Li Si would definitely be part of the Bone Army. If she started to nurture him now, she would feed him a merit grain. She did not expect him to start killing calamity beasts. But the problem was that she could not afford to feed him. If she nurtured an army of 100 million like Excellency, how much money would she need? The merit grains would probably fill up her law ocean. So scary, so scary. She only wanted to nurture a few bones that could kill calamity beasts. Moreover, when killing calamity beasts, she would need to consume faith power. Oh my God. Ning Shu hugged his head. He had a huge family, but he was so poor. Now, it was just a reincarnation world. If there was another world beside it that formed a reincarnation world, he would need even more skeletons. Ning Shu's face turned green. Damn, where would he get money? When there was no world, he racked his brains for a world. Now that there was a world, more things came out. After leaving the reincarnation world, Ning Shu went to the 4th level. Walking on the streets, he saw all kinds of beastmen and humans. What was the 5th level like? Ning Shu wanted to enter the 5th level, but he could not. What was the meaning of this? Rejecting her, not allowing her to enter the 5th level before she settled the 4th level. Ning Shu felt like he was the groom. He had to pass many tests before he could win the heart of the beauty. If he was not allowed to enter, then so be it. Did you think that he wanted to enter? There was no benefit at all. Speaking of which, Ning Shu picked up all the benefits in the 3 levels below. The soul stone on the 1st level even formed a reincarnation world. The soul fluid on the 2nd level, there were even some people who were secretly refining soul fluid. For a period of time, she still had soul fluid. When the time came, she would go and harvest it. It was like harvesting leeks. She even had a disciple to help her. The 3rd level contained living beings. She obtained 20 million merit points and successfully comprehended the laws. /BK. Chapter 2741. He hadn't seen the benefits of the 4th level yet, so he didn't know what they were. What kind of world would the 5th level be? If the 9 Palace Mountain was used as a training ground, then none of the disciples sent in by the sects would be able to leave. The big shots of the immortal cultivation sects were probably waiting for their disciples to come out. Ning Shu returned to the system space and took the letter, ready to comprehend the law of space. He had already comprehended the rules, so there was no reason for him to be stuck on the law of space. While he was excited, he might be able to comprehend the law of space. Even if he wanted to pick up trash, he didn't want to give the reward to others. Now punishing 664, he will be subjected to the astral wind for 10,000 years before being killed. The main system sent another message. Ning Shu looked at it and felt that the organization had gone crazy. The previous one and this one were both big shots. Not only did they get rid of one, they got rid of another one. What were they trying to do? These big shots should have built a world of living beings. Why were they still killed? Ning Shu asked 2333, even mission enforcers of this level are killed? How big of a crime was this? Torture them for 10,000 years before being killed. 2333 said, I think he crossed the line. He crossed the line. But there are living beings in the world. If the person who built the world dies, the world won't be able to protect it. They were connected by fate. 2333 said, what's the big deal? It's just the living beings in the world. If they were transferred to another world, then the mission enforcer's world would be empty. An empty world, if it's destroyed, then so be it. There was no psychological burden to kill. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, as the saying goes, 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 as long as the priest is 1 foot tall, the devil is 10 feet tall. So what if there are living beings in your world? If you go overboard and transfer the living beings away, then the world will explode and the people will be killed. Ning Shu shrunk his neck. So even if I built a world, I might not be killed? The only thing that is certain in this world is that everything is changing. There is nothing certain in this world. It can only be said that mission enforcers who have constructed worlds have more freedom and resources than normal mission enforcers. They won't be killed over trivial matters. But if you go overboard, the punishment will be much crueler than normal mission enforcers. Ordinary mission enforcers would be killed in an instant, but these mission enforcers would first taste the torture of tens of thousands of years before being killed. Being stripped of everything, was even more painful than being tortured for tens of thousands of years. Ning Shu is so scared that he's scared like a dog. I'm going to make sure these people can't punish him in the future. Forget it. I'll just go and comprehend the laws of space. Ning Shu took these people's punishments as a warning, but he didn't feel anything else. Because they didn't know each other. Not to sympathize with how pitiful. Ding dong. The chat system sounded again. The sudden sound made Ning Shu's heart clench. Recently, he had heard this voice too many times, and he was a little traumatized. Usually, nothing good would happen, and good things would never happen to her. Not wanting to look, Ning Shu's finger obediently opened the chat system. Again, the main system sent over. Main system, congratulations on becoming a beginner volunteer. There will be 3 volunteer activities a month. Please participate on time. Ning Shu. Volunteer? What is this? What is this? Ning Shu asked the main system. The main system's answer made Ning Shu's kidneys explode. Main system, it's to deal with the trash of the plane fragments. Every month, every volunteer has to do it 3 times a month. This is mandatory, dear. Ning Shu covered his ears. I didn't hear it, Ning Shu asked. Who are the volunteers? Main system, everyone who has comprehended the laws is a volunteer. Although they are volunteers, they are still paid. Ning Shu shook his legs. Why was it completely different from what he imagined? It didn't look like it at all. Ning Shu realized very hopelessly that comprehending the laws would only make his time even more crowded. There were also 3 volunteer activities a month to pick up trash. This was different from what they had agreed on. Different? Ning Shu struggled. I still have to do missions. A month will have passed by the time I come back from a mission. The main system said coldly, you can accumulate. After you finish the mission, just finish the accumulated work. Ning Shu, no, I don't. Ning Shu struggled. I haven't comprehended the law of space. I can't go to the plane. Main system, it doesn't matter. Someone will build a space channel. Ning Shu. In the past, when he wanted to pick up trash, he ran into a wall everywhere. Now that he didn't want to, it was mandatory. Go away, all of you. Anyway, she had been blacklisted by the senior uncle. If she couldn't go, she would say that she couldn't go because she couldn't contact him. Ning Shu opened the chat interface with the senior uncle and suddenly found that the blacklisting status had been lifted. So, the other party could receive a message if she sent it over. You really should have blacklisted me for 20 years. Don't remove the blacklisting status so quickly. How immoral. Ning Shu moved her fingers, took a deep breath, and then gracefully blacklisted the senior uncle. This way, he wouldn't be able to contact her and she wouldn't have to pick up trash. She didn't know how to build a space channel. It was forcing her to pick up trash. Awesome. Although he was deceiving himself and others, he was deceiving himself. Ning Shu took the letter to comprehend the law of space. Suddenly, she felt no pressure at all. It didn't matter. After comprehending the law of space, she had to do volunteer work every month. There was no pressure at all. She could comprehend as much as she could. She was going to build a space channel now. The space channel she built was very short, only a meter or so, and it wasn't big. Other people's were big, long, and stable. The space channel she built was very unstable and could collapse at any time. It was like a bubble. It might burst with a little force. She was also comprehending the law of space. Ning Shu felt that the law of space she comprehended might be fake. Why was it so different from others? So different. Ning Shu flipped through the letter. She might have bought a pirated textbook. Ning Shu tore the letter. She felt that with the letter, it was as if it had drawn a circle for her and she was wandering in this circle. She couldn't help but want to read the letter. What she tore was not a book, but merit. She had spent 100,000 merit points to buy this handwritten letter. Without the handwritten letter, there was no longer any restrictions. Without anyone to rely on, Ning Shu's heart became much more relaxed. She could comprehend it however she wanted. It was all her own anyway. Referring to others would always be limited to other people's thoughts and thoughts. Ning Shu began to build a space channel and practiced lengthening it. Moreover, it had to be a stable space channel that couldn't be easily destroyed. Chapter 2742. Although Ning Shu could build a spatial tunnel, it was not sturdy at all. Although it had grown compared to before, Ning Shu walked in the spatial tunnel by herself. The spatial tunnel collapsed without giving her any face. Building a spatial tunnel was like weaving a fishing net, tying knots one by one to connect the spatial nodes. Obviously, Ning Shu's fishing net was not sturdy at all. Ning Shu had no choice. Since she did not explain, with so many knots and densely connected spatial nodes, it would be much sturdier. However, it would take a long time to build a spatial tunnel like this. Others could build a spatial tunnel in an instant, but she needed a long time. Even if she went to pick up trash in the future, she would still painstakingly build a spatial tunnel after everyone else had left. Was there some sort of trick involved in this? Ning Shu pulled her hair. It was simply making her bald. Why was spatial law so difficult to comprehend? She was really not good at this. She was already very serious and focused on it. She spent a long time, but her progress was slow in this aspect. Even if Ning Shu repeatedly felt that she could do it, she had to admit that she really did not have any talent. Building a spatial tunnel consumed a lot of mental energy. After a while, Ning Shu was already dizzy and could not continue building a spatial tunnel. Her mental energy was exhausted. Ning Shu was angry and ruthless. Even if she felt uncomfortable, she forced herself to endure. Her mental energy had also reached a bottleneck. Sometimes it was not enough at all. If she really wanted to build a spatial tunnel in the future, she would need spatial nodes. She would use spatial power to connect the spatial nodes. If she did not have enough mental energy, she would have to stop halfway and give up halfway. As her mental energy was exhausted, Ning Shu felt her head hurt more and more. That feeling of emptiness was as if her soul was about to be exhausted. It was especially uncomfortable and uncomfortable. Although there was a trace of coolness from the wood law to relieve her fatigue, the feeling of emptiness in her soul could not be relieved. Her soul hurt as if it was about to be torn apart. Ning Shu had to stop this self-abuse. It hurt a little. She dragged her tired body back to the system space and lay on the sofa without moving. After a while, from between her eyebrows, there was a slightly warm and comfortable flow from between her eyebrows to every corner of her body. The pain of her soul being torn apart was alleviated a lot. Ning Shu touched his forehead. This was the power of the water droplet. As for the rules of life, Ning Shu did not know what they could do. Other than picking up trash, how could he find that they could relieve fatigue? Ning Shu clicked on the system exchange store to see if there were any items that could expand his mental strength. Her current spiritual power was clearly insufficient, and she was struggling to construct the spatial tunnel. She also wanted to be able to construct a sturdy spatial passageway in an instant. It was large and sturdy. In the future, if they really connected the fourth level of the Nine Palace Mountain to the world of reincarnation, what if the spatial passageway wasn't sturdy enough? What if something went wrong midway? Furthermore, if it wasn't safe, who knew if he would encounter spatial cracks and spatial storms when he used the spatial passageway in the future? Especially when picking up trash, when traveling between planes, it was very likely that he would be swept away by the spatial storm until nothing was left. This was a very serious matter. Ning Shu didn't dare to be careless. Ning Shu looked through the system exchange store, but he couldn't find any way to expand his mental strength. Was there no such item? Ning Shu asked the system exchange store's customer service staff if there was such an item. The customer service staff very apologetically told Ning Shu that there was basically no item for this type of mental strength cultivation. Even if there was an item, it could only increase one's mental strength to a certain extent. In fact, it was equivalent to a person holding a knife. Their combat strength increased, but their physical strength didn't increase much. Most of the strength was increased by the knife. Ning Shu wanted to strengthen himself and not rely on an item to increase his mental strength. Ning Shu wanted to search for ways to increase his mental strength, and there were all kinds of answers. However, Ning Shu found out about the state of his mental strength. There was a mental strength the size of a soybean in his sea of consciousness, and all his mental strength came from this bean. As his mental strength varied, the size of the mental strength in his sea of consciousness varied. Some were very small, some were the size of a soccer ball, and the more powerful ones were the size of a lake, and the lake was filled with mental strength. This was the development from a solid state to a liquid state, and the more powerful ones, the mental strength ball could form a universe. In short, the bigger the mental strength ball, the better, and the liquid one was better than the solid one. However, there wasn't a single accurate description of the specific cultivation method. This kind of mission enforcers forum discussed all kinds of random things, including mission strategies and all kinds of secrets. It was classified as entertainment, and there wasn't much real information. Not everyone wanted to openly share their cultivation experience. Therefore, although Ning Shu knew the state of mental strength, he didn't know how to specifically turn mental strength from a solid state to a liquid state. Ning Shu sank into his sea of consciousness and looked for his mental strength ball. Then he found the mental strength ball and suspended it in his sea of consciousness. Ning Shu found that although his mental strength ball wasn't as small as a soybean, it was only the size of a ping-pong ball. It was really small, and it was suspended in his sea of consciousness pitifully. Ning Shu was speechless. He felt that his mental strength wasn't enough every time. It turned out that his mental strength ball was so small. It was really too pitiful. But how to make his mental strength ball bigger? From a ping-pong ball to a soccer ball, to the earth, to the universe. From a solid state to a liquid state, from a water droplet to a vast ocean. He was so blind. He didn't know how to cultivate. There didn't seem to be any secret manuals that could cultivate mental strength. Ning Shu went through the exchange store page by page, looking for secret manuals. He hoped that he could find a cultivation secret manual. After browsing for a while, he found a secret manual that cost 150,000 merit points. Ning Shu exchanged for it without thinking. Money wasn't a problem. He urgently needed to improve his mental strength now. Ning Shu bought the secret manual as if he had found a treasure. Then he flipped it open. However, the content inside made Ning Shu petrified. Because the cultivation secret manual only had one sentence: keep attacking your mental strength ball. Ning Shu was speechless. 150,000 merit points to buy a few words. This was really worth 1,000 gold per word. Was it useful to keep attacking the mental strength ball in his sea of consciousness? Ning Shu prepared himself and used his consciousness to attack the mental strength ball. The mental strength ball moved a little, but Ning Shu's whole body was in so much pain that he fell to the ground. It felt like a very thick needle was stuck into his brain, and then he kept stirring his brain. It was so painful. It was so painful. Was this a cultivation method? It was obviously self-torture. Chapter 2743. Ning Shu lay on the ground weakly. She reached out to grab the secret manual on the coffee table and flipped through it while lying on the ground. Because it was too painful, Ning Shu saw double as she read the words. In short, this cultivation method was to stimulate the spiritual ball appropriately. The spiritual ball would automatically defend itself and slowly strengthen. However, it couldn't be overstimulated or cultivated, or it would completely collapse. Then, it would cause the annihilation of the soul. This cultivation method was very painful at the beginning, but the pain would gradually weaken. Ning Shu directly threw the secret manual to the ground. This was a scam. This wasn't cultivation, this was self-mutilation. It was too painful. It was just a slight stimulation, but Ning Shu felt that her soul was trembling. It was too painful. She couldn't take it. Moreover, Ning Shu was very afraid that her spiritual ball would collapse just like that. At that time, she wouldn't be able to use any spiritual power. Without spiritual power, how was she going to build a spatial tunnel? This pain was still fresh in her memory. For the time being, Ning Shu didn't dare to stimulate it again. Ning Shu rested for a while. A warm current flowed out from between her eyebrows, nourishing her soul and alleviating the pain of her brain exploding. Slowly, the pain lessened. So this water droplet was used as a painkiller? Everyone was afraid of pain. Now that this water droplet had such an effect, Ning Shu was of course very happy. When the pain was completely alleviated, Ning Shu was eager to try again. She lightly stimulated the spiritual ball. However, in an instant, Ning Shu felt as if a heavy hammer had smashed her head. Her soul hurt as if it had been smashed open. If not for the fact that she was in a soul state, Ning Shu would have already spat out a mouthful of blood. Ning Shu hugged her head and rolled on the ground. It was so painful. The water droplet between her eyebrows shone slightly, alleviating the pain in Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu really didn't dare to stimulate the spiritual ball too frequently. If she did, the spiritual ball would explode, and she might become a wandering soul without thoughts. Ning Shu was in so much pain that her whole body trembled. She curled up into a ball and overestimated her endurance. This pain was due to the counterattack of the spiritual sphere. If something were to harm it, the spiritual sphere would automatically defend itself, but the pain it caused to its owner was unimaginable. Ning Shu felt unwell all over. At this moment, the chatting system rang. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. In the past, the chatting system never rang. Now, it was ringing all the time. Furthermore, it was definitely not a good thing to look for him. I'm in a lot of pain right now. I don't want to know who sent me the message. Ning Shu waited until the pain had completely disappeared and he felt more comfortable before opening the chat system. The person who sent the message was her uncle whom she had met once. The meaning was very simple. He wanted her to buy a drop of the source of life. Ning Shu had no choice but to investigate what the source of life was. It should be the liquid born from the water droplets. Was he asking her to sell her blood? Sister's body is weak now, so I won't sell my blood. Ning Shu did some research and found that the source of life was the power born from the law of life. To put it bluntly, it was a liquid that contained the aura of life. Ning Shu, I don't have it now. I can't sell it. If he guessed correctly, the warm current that gushed out of the painful water droplets should be the source of life. Her uncle looked very gentle and easy to talk to. Then when can you sell it? I heard that you've only comprehended the law of life not long ago. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. The other party was so neither soft nor hard that Ning Shu couldn't refuse. In a while. You know that I've only comprehended the law of life not long ago, so there are some things I need to familiarize myself with. He asked again, what do you want this for? Uncle, of course it's a prop. You can set the price. From his tone, it seemed that his uncle was very rich, very rich. Ning Shu said reservedly, okay, when I want to sell it, I'll sell it. Sell it? Why did this sound so ambiguous? Ning Shu thought again. If he was really short of money, could he sell the source of life? It felt a bit like selling his kidney. In short, Ning Shu felt that in the future, he wouldn't be so short of money that he had nowhere to go. Ning Shu was quite happy in his heart. So when he was strong, there would be a steady stream of resources. The chat system rang again. Ning Shu stared at the person who sent the message. It was actually Senior Uncle. Senior Uncle, have you rested enough? You can come over now. Ning Shu, hadn't she already blocked him? How could this person still send her a message? She didn't see it. Ning Shu closed the chat system. I didn't see anything. This kind of person had the help of the main system. He could block others, but no one could block him. She had clearly blocked him, but he didn't expect to still be able to contact her. She could still see his messages. I'm begging you to block me and ignore me. The chat system rang again. Ning Shu said to 2333, I'm going to do a mission. As he spoke, he opened the system exchange store and exchanged for some basic medicine and fasting pills. 2333 said, you'd better see what he said. The main system can check whether you have done a mission or not. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and opened the chat system. It was still him. Ning Shu couldn't help but ask, didn't I just pick it up? Why are you still looking for me? Senior Uncle, because you picked it up quickly. Ning Shu, was she too active, so they caught her and made her work? Ning Shu shrugged. Exterminate me. The hairs on his back stood on end. He felt as if he was being watched and his hair stood on end. Ning Shu didn't want such praise at all. He said directly, I'm going to do a mission. Senior Uncle, you haven't done a mission yet. Come here, the organization needs you. No, don't flatter me. Everything wanted her to do manual labor. She was obviously being pulled into the role of a strong man. I'm tired. I just picked it up. Senior Uncle, just come here. I won't let you die of exhaustion. I'll keep you alive. Ning Shu, should I thank you? Besides, she was a soul. She didn't need to breathe at all. There was no such thing as keeping her alive. Ning Shu didn't intend to go, but a space channel appeared in front of him. Ning Shu had a little calculation in his heart. He stepped into the space channel and walked for a long time to reach the broken plane. At first glance, there were fragments floating everywhere. How many planes had collapsed? Why were there so many fragments? If it was a plane, there wouldn't be so many fragments at all. It felt like the plane had exploded like firecrackers. There were obviously many more big shots picking up garbage than before. So this was an emergency. Ning Shu didn't say anything. He picked up the garbage bag and began to pick up the fragments. There were so many. How long would it take? And to pick up the fragments, he had to pick up the fragments close to other planes first. Otherwise, this kind of fragment was very likely to rush into other planes. Ning Shu was now in high spirits. It didn't take him any effort to pick up the garbage, and he was also very fast. Chapter 2744. She pulled the garbage bag with one hand and kept picking up pieces with the other. Sometimes she would grab 2 or 3 pieces and stuff them in. Ning Shu came back to her senses. Was it because she was too enthusiastic that she was pulled in as a strong person? But in this case, of course, she had to pick up as many pieces as she could. Otherwise, these pieces would rush into other planes. With the water droplets, she could relieve herself when she was tired and in pain. Damn, was she going to become a perpetual motion machine? Working nonstop? There were at least a few hundred big bosses who came to pick up the garbage this time. It sounded like a lot, but compared to the huge number of mission enforcers, these people were not many. Every time they picked up the garbage, they relied on mission enforcers who had comprehended the rules. It was said to be volunteer work, but it was obviously forced work. In the future, they would not only have to do missions. Mission enforcers did missions. It was a must. It was their job. Now they had to pick up the pieces. Was there really no tool that could deal with this garbage at once? It felt quite stifling. If they relied on manual labor to pick up the pieces one by one, how long would it take? Ning Shu stuffed the pieces into the garbage bag as he approached Granduncle and asked, "How many planes have collapsed this time?" Granduncle said indifferently, 18. 50. Why did so many of them collapse? More than a dozen. Wasn't the banging like firecrackers? Granduncle dealt with the star stones quickly. There were a lot of star stones in more than a dozen planes. It's too late. Granduncle frowned. Ning Shu didn't ask any more questions. Fragrant Wind was furious, and his face was extremely ugly. This kind of plane patrol was the army's job. This time, more than a dozen planes had collapsed. It was a very serious accident. Fragrant Wind was probably going to be criticized. Ning Shu picked up the garbage faster. When embedding the planes, he could pick up more scraps. And many star stones couldn't be used. More than a dozen planes had collapsed. To link the planes, he only needed star stones from 1 or 2 planes. There were still so many left. Ning Shu's heart was burning. When the time came, he could get more. Ning Shu's heart was full of motivation. He picked up the garbage faster and faster. His hands even left after images. Everyone, what a fierce girl. While laughing, he picked up the trash like crazy. Was it that fun to pick up fragments? Merit points could not tempt Ning Shu, let alone these big shots. They did not care about 100,000 merit points at all. They came here with the intention of completing the mission, so it was impossible to say that they were enthusiastic. However, there was no one like Ning Shu who was running around like a butterfly. Was it because he had never picked up a shard before? Was that why he was so excited? All the bosses expressed their understanding. After a long time, they wouldn't be so excited anymore. Although it was said that picking up spatial fragments was high and mighty, to them, it felt like picking up plastic bottles every day. When Ning Shu felt a little tired, the wood laws and the water droplets would flow out, making her feel invigorated. Ning Shu continued to pick up like this. After picking up several bags, he tied them up. Then he took another bag and ran around to pick up the pieces. Normally, they would carry 2 other bags. Fragments with the power of laws would be placed in one bag, and ordinary fragments would be placed in the other. Different fragments were placed in different positions and could not be mixed together. In fact, they were just sorting the trash. With everyone's efforts, the floating fragments became fewer and fewer. However, everyone was quite tired. They slowed down, and Ning Shu was not as fast as before. Although these fragments were not heavy, after a long time, it was very tiring. And his face was dark all the time. When Ning Shu passed by him, he would take a detour. The fragrant and he was now emitting a gloomy aura. Whoever went near him would be unlucky. Ning Shu did not want to go up there and look for trouble. Of course, Ning Shu was still a little gloating in his heart. The heavens were clear. Let's see who will be spared. and he saw that every time Ning Shu passed by him, he was like a little mouse, slipping away and disappearing. Why was he hated by everyone now? And his face became even darker. This was more or less a blatant mockery. The boss was in a bad mood, causing the atmosphere of the army to also be gloomy. No one dared to speak. No matter what, the army had failed in their duty this time. Ning Shu shook his arm and felt that it was very uncomfortable. After repeating this monotonous action, even his soul could not bear it. As the fragments became fewer and fewer, everyone seemed to see hope. They sped up and collected the fragments that were previously floating in the air. Ning Shu tied up his pockets and sat down to rest. The army came and took away these pockets. He did not know where these fragments would end up. He remembered that those bugs also ate fragments and the world's origin. The things those bugs ate were really high-end. So, the trash was collected to prevent it from harming the surrounding planes. Secondly, it could be used as supplies for future wars and peace talks. When he was not collecting the trash, Ning Shu opened the black bone umbrella. The surface of the umbrella was originally white and glossy, but now it was gray. It looked as if it was covered with a layer of dust. It could not be brushed off. He suddenly felt disgusted. The umbrella was dirty. However, in order to prevent her soul from being contaminated, Ning Shu still kept an umbrella open. Anyway, she could not see the surface of the umbrella. Out of sight, out of mind. When this umbrella completely became a black umbrella, he would buy a new one. 50,000 merit points to buy a new one. This time, he should have 100,000 merit points as a reward. He could buy 2 umbrellas. He had already picked up all the trash. Was he going to deal with it here and then head to the next place? There was no end to it. Did he never stop? Ning Shu felt that doing missions was more comfortable. He was fulfilling the wishes of the person who entrusted him. He could do whatever was comfortable. Ning Shu did not know anyone here except for Fragrant Wind Man and Tai Shu. The others gathered in groups and chatted, while she stood alone. Ning Shu felt that he had been a lone ranger for a long time. He should get to know more people in the future. At least, he should have a nodding acquaintance with these bosses. However, when his world of reincarnation was successful, there should be many people coming to him to connect to the world of reincarnation. Therefore, there was no need to painstakingly build relationships with others. When flowers bloomed, there would be butterflies. When grass was fertilized, there would be wild horses. With enough capital, there would naturally be people coming to him. Come, let's be friends. If he went over directly, others would dislike him and make him uncomfortable. He just played with the umbrella handle and then studied the water droplet between his eyebrows. Could this thing really produce the source of life? But how could he bring it up alone? Ning Shu, who had nothing to do, wanted to stimulate his spiritual ball to strengthen his spiritual power. However, he would probably have to pick up the trash later. He did not want to torture himself. Who thought of such a self-harming cultivation method? Chapter 2745. Ning Shu suspected that this was a cultivation method created by someone who wanted to take revenge on society. Because it was too painful. He started to connect the planes. Senior Uncle only used a small portion of the star stones and left a lot behind. Ning Shu picked up some scraps. Seeing Senior Uncle let the army take away the rest of the star stones, he quickly said, "There are so many left. Can you give me some?" It was piled up like a mountain. Ning Shu deeply felt that he might be cheated. When Senior Uncle returned the peerless martial arts to him, he gave him 2 star stones and asked for 100 years of taxes from Water City and Wood City. Ning Shu didn't think about how much money that was. Senior Uncle nodded. "Pick up 2 pieces." Ning Shu immediately picked up 2 large and tall star stones and stuffed them into the mess in space. Since he promised to give it to her, he shouldn't take it away from her mess in space. He remembered that he secretly stuffed a star stone fragment, but the star stone disappeared in the blink of an eye. Ning Shu glanced at Senior Uncle and stuffed another 2 large pieces into the mess in space. Seeing that he didn't speak, he took another 2 large pieces. Being stared at, he braced himself and picked up 2 more pieces before stopping. "You didn't ask me to stop. I can only think that you acquiesced to me taking things." He was shameless enough to burst his belly. She didn't expect to get 8 large star stones without spending a penny. She probably didn't need to worry about the law of nothingness for a long time. Sure enough, there was fragrance beyond the walls. Although she couldn't directly deal with the law of nothingness now, she didn't need to worry about it overflowing all the time, because she now had enough star stones to hold the law of nothingness. Happy. It was worth picking up trash this time. Ning Shu held the black bone umbrella and asked Senior Uncle, "Can we go now?" Senior Uncle took a few steps back and stayed far away from Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned the handle of the umbrella. Tiske, he was actually afraid of an umbrella. Ning Shu really wanted to close the umbrella and throw it directly at him. But he didn't dare to for now. Wait a little longer. I still have to pick up. The Grand Elder's face was cold. Is there something wrong with your brain? You're holding an umbrella every day like a retard. Ning Shu shrugged. I like it. It's none of your business. I like to run around with an umbrella. You're in charge of the heavens and the earth, but you're in charge of my umbrella? You don't believe that you're going to kill me just because I'm holding an umbrella? Grand Elder glanced at her as if she was an idiot. Then he checked the connection of the planes. The star stone liquid had dried up, and the planes were connected. He said to everyone, "Let's go to the next place." Sigh, how miserable, everyone sighed. They were obviously tired, but they had no choice but to do it. It was tough. Ning Shu followed him into the spatial tunnel. He stretched out his hand and touched the tunnel. Why was the space constructed by others so sturdy and stable? Could it be that there was some trick to it? Poor students really couldn't afford to be hurt. Ning Shu walked at the back, carefully inspecting the spatial passageway to find out its secrets. As he walked and comprehended, Ning Shu discovered something. That was because the passageway was fixed with many triangles. What was the most stable shape? It was definitely a triangle. After learning this, he would test it out when he went back. Ning Shu quickened his pace and followed the people in front. This time, there was quite little damage to the planes. One plane was broken, and there weren't many fragments. There were hundreds of people. After dividing it evenly, everyone didn't need to pick up much. After picking up the pieces and completing the mission, they left. Ning Shu carried the bag and began to pick up the trash. At a glance, the planes were like a huge hive, boundless and endless. One by one, the planes formed a spectacular and huge hive. The planes were very big. Billions of planes were connected together. The scene was needless to say. Ning Shu felt that the army was also quite miserable. They had to patrol so many planes. Once they found a problem, they had to stabilize it immediately. The previous 18 planes that had collapsed obviously hadn't been discovered immediately. When they found out, it took some time to control the situation. During this time, a few more planes must have collapsed. Mission enforcers, armies, and organizations were all for the sake of these billions of planes. Of course, there were also benefits. If people were asked to work for free, who would be willing to do it all the time? Picking up trash was said to be volunteer work. There was still a reward. Whether it was more or less depended on the attitude. They couldn't really ask people to do volunteer work. If they were forced to do it a few times a month, who would be willing? They would definitely slack off. If there was a reward, you had to at least do this job well. One person was worth 100,000 merit points. There were hundreds of people here. That was millions of merit points. The creatures of their planes had to be transferred to other worlds. Transporting the creatures of a world was a reward of tens of millions of merit points. Transporting the creatures of more than 10 worlds to other mission enforcers' worlds, how much merit points would they have to pay? This account couldn't be calculated in detail. It was a sky-high number. The planes that collapsed were all money, merit points, and power of faith. Scary. Where could the organization get so much money? Could it be that they were extorting wool over and over again? Even if they were, it was just a drop in the bucket. There was also the military expenses. It seemed that the Bone Army of His Excellency also consumed merit points. Therefore, the organization needed to pay for the military expenses. The military expenses of the world of Samsara and the mission enforcers' rewards. Could this organization make a profit? What was it for? Such a huge organization. Who knew what kind of earthquake it would cause if it collapsed one day? The closer he got to the organization, the more confused he felt. Ning Shu picked up the trash. There were many things in his mind. Actually, these planes were quite blessed. There were people guarding them. In unknown places, there were people guarding them like this. Ning Shu wanted to ask Fragrant Wind Man about the organization. But when he saw his dark face, he decided not to go over. Because there were few fragments, they finished picking up quickly. Everyone stopped and started to rest. Ning Shu tied up the trash bags, put them separately and sat down. Someone sat down next to him. Ning Shu asked, "What rule did you comprehend?" Ning Shu pointed to his eyebrows. "It's this rule." "Water?" that person asked uncertainly. Ning Shu shook his head. "It's a bit like water, a bit like life. Anyway, I'm not too sure myself. Life, it's quite impressive." That person laughed and left. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. He saw that the person who asked the question walked to the crowd over there. He guessed that the person was talking about something. Many people glanced at Ning Shu. In this situation, Ning Shu saw that the topic was obviously talking about her. What did he say behind her back? But Ning Shu didn't care much. He opened the umbrella and sat cross-legged. The umbrella covered half of his body. Ning Shu used his spiritual power to invade the meson space to check if the big star stones were still there. He was really worried. The big star stones were still in the meson space. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. He felt that the judge was narrow-minded. The star stones that she stole were actually very small. He had scraped them clean. Could it be that she couldn't take the things away without his permission? If that was the case, Ning Shu gave up the idea of fishing in troubled waters. Trembling with fear, he took 2 pieces. But when he went back to check, there was nothing. /BK. Chapter 2747. Without enough spiritual power, one couldn't build a long space tunnel. Ning Shu stimulated the spiritual sphere in his consciousness. It was so painful that he couldn't stand up. It was painful and he couldn't see any effect. Ning Shu returned to the system space and opened the exchange store. He decided to change his training method. Because this method was really too painful. It was so painful and there was no effect. At least his spiritual power didn't increase. And Ning Shu was a little scared when he looked at the spiritual sphere in his consciousness. The pain of stimulating the spiritual sphere was unforgettable. The person who invented this training method must be crazy. Ning Shu couldn't find any other secret manuals. Spiritual power was innate, but part of it could be developed. But there were no other training methods. Therefore, he had no choice but to use the spiritual ball as a cultivation method. Ning Shu hugged his head. It was so painful. Forget it, he would stimulate it when he had time. Maybe he would get used to the pain. Damn, how could he get used to the pain? Passively enduring the pain and torturing himself was a little cruel. Ning Shu said to 2333, "Then let's go do the mission." If he didn't do the mission, he would be pulled in again. He was the one who was tired, others didn't care if he was tired or not. Ning Shu suddenly had the illusion that doing the mission was resting. 2333 asked, "Do the system mission?" System mission again. 2333 just woke up not long ago. Why did he want to devour the system again? Ning Shu shook his head, "Not for now." Doing the system mission was tiring. It wasn't dealing with one person, it was dealing with one person plus one system. The difficulty wasn't 1 + 1 = 2. It was 1 + 1 greater than 2. She didn't want to do it now. She would think about it later. She had exchanged the fasting pills and medicine before. She could go do the mission now. There was a feeling of weightlessness. Ning Shu merged into a body. The merging speed was faster than ever before. In the past, when he entered a body, it was like being forced in. It was very uncomfortable. Now, it was like water flowing into the body. Soon, success came naturally, and he didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Ning Shu opened his eyes and found himself in a bathtub. The bathtub was filled with water, and flower petals floated on the surface of the water, emitting a fragrant steam. His whole body was soaked in the warm water, making him feel warm and comfortable. The first time he entered her body, it felt so good. There were maids around them who were wiping Ning Shu's body. Their small hands were massaging his body gently, making him feel very comfortable. Some people kept adding hot water to it. Looking at the surrounding decorations, they were also from a wealthy family. Well, at least I don't have to worry about food and clothing. Ning Shu closed his eyes slightly, enjoying it while accepting the plot. However, after receiving the plot, Ning Shu felt that such a rich life without having to worry about food and clothing was a bit of a scam. The client's name was Ning Ani. His father was a fourth-ranked official from the Ministry of Rights. However, Ning Ani's father's achievements in politics were not outstanding. His ability was average, so he was not favored by the emperor. A very mediocre person. However, he was good at giving birth to a daughter. His eldest daughter married the emperor's great-grandson, Xiao Zijin. Xiao Zijin's father was the emperor's favorite son. He was a talented Chinese and had the benevolence of a ruler. He would probably be the next emperor. However, the heavens were jealous of talents. Then, Xiao Zijin's father died. As for how he died, it was said that he had an incurable disease, but some said that it was poison. Anyway, the person most likely to become the emperor was dead. It was a pity for the emperor to place all his love on his grandson. Xiao Zijin was given the title of a prince and was doted on. Xiao Zijin and Ning Ani's sister, Ning Anshuang, got married and became the famous golden couple in the capital. The two of them were so loving that others envied them. However, when Ning Anshuang was pregnant and gave birth to a son, she passed away. With his wife gone, Xiao Zijin hugged the skinny monkey and couldn't get up. He handed the baby to the wet nurse and didn't care about it at all. Since the master didn't care about the child and the child didn't have a mother, the wet nurse naturally neglected him. The child often cried from hunger and fell sick. When Xiao Zijin heard that his son almost died of illness, he woke up from his dream. How could he not love the child of his beloved wife? It was his wife who passed away. He was immersed in his pain and neglected the child. Xiao Zijin dealt with the wet nurse and took care of the child himself. Then, he remembered that the child didn't have a mother. As for the client, he followed his mother to see his sister's child. It didn't matter. Ning Ani, who was somewhat similar to his sister, caught Xiao Zijin's eye. Thus, when he knew that Ning Ani was of marriageable age, Xiao Zijin went to propose marriage. He wanted his sister-in-law to be his second wife. Moreover, she was the child's aunt. He didn't have to worry that the princess would mistreat or abuse the child in the future. For Father Ning, it was a great thing that both of his daughters married into the royal family and were both legal wives. It couldn't be more perfect. Moreover, the client's mother also agreed. In short, they hit it off. Under the matchmaker's orders, the client, Ning Ani, directly married over. She married her brother-in-law. At this time, this situation was very normal. Ning Ani's impression of her brother-in-law was still that he was deeply in love with her sister. Suddenly marrying her brother-in-law was also indescribably strange. Before getting married, her mother told her to take good care of her sister's child. On the wedding night, her husband called her sister's name. The next morning, a servant brought over medicine, which was said to relieve fatigue and pain. Ning Ani drank it, so she became infertile. This was a bowl of medicine for infertility. It was very cold and harmful to the body. The client was only of marriageable age and had just reached 16 years old. She drank it, and every time her period came, she would be in great pain. Of course, the client didn't know about this at that time. She just came to the prince's mansion and naturally couldn't do anything disobedient. She drank whatever she was given. The client shouldered the responsibility of taking care of the child. Ning Ani could be considered her nephew. Now, he was also her son in name. The client not only had to take care of the child, but also take care of Xiao Zijin. Moreover, the client found that the servant beside her would interfere with her daily necessities. This servant had always taken care of Xiao Zijin, so she had to give her some face. For example, Princess. The former princess liked to wear plain clothes. In reality, The client didn't like plain clothes. Princess, the former princess, liked music. The client liked embroidery and calligraphy. Princess, the peach blossom cake made by the former princess is very delicious. Prince likes it very much. The client wore her sister's clothes and was forced to learn music. She also had to learn how to make peach blossom cakes. Xiao Zijin saw that the client was becoming more and more satisfied. She looked at her with reminiscence, gentleness, and love. /BK. Chapter 2748. Sometimes, the living couldn't compare to the dead. The dead lived in their hearts, and their memories were all beautiful. As for the living, they only saw the magnified shortcomings. The smell was far away. The client was also a little rebellious and often insisted, making Xiao Zijin unhappy. She would carry the child to her room to sleep. At this time, Ning Ani's heart was uneasy, and her mother scolded her for being childish. What's wrong with saying this? You're all sisters anyway. As for the father, he was afraid of offending the prince, so he wouldn't say anything and let his wife beat his daughter. Who didn't know that his two daughters were married to the emperor's obedient grandson? Outside, people would give him face. If the prince and his daughter didn't have a good relationship, it would implicate him. Under pressure from all sides, the client had no choice but to compromise. This compromise would lead to more compromises. From then on, the client had to live like an older sister. What time to eat, when to sleep, what to eat, what to do, she had to learn from her older sister. In short, Ning Shu's conclusion was that after his wife died and he married his sister-in-law, he had to transform his sister-in-law into his wife. He had to transform her into a perfect wife. The more perfect and beautiful Xiao Zijin's wife was, the greater the requirements for the client. How to smile, how to speak, what tone to use. He was strict in all aspects and meticulous. Even so, Xiao Zijin was very clear that Ning Ani wasn't his beloved wife. If she wasn't the child's mother, he wouldn't let the child get too close to the client. This kind of life was uninhibited. The client had to live like a doll, and couldn't have her own personality or opinions. Xiao Zijin wanted to turn the client into an ideal wife, a wife who was constantly magnified and beautiful in his memory. The client was unhappy, depressed, and in pain. She was suffocating and desperate. Moreover, she had been married for a few years and didn't have any children. But the client's mother said that a woman didn't want to worry about food and clothing. Look, she married a prince and was a princess consort, so her status was noble. As for children, your older sister's child was also related to you by blood. Whether you had children or not depended on fate. You had to treat the child sincerely because it was also your biological child. The client felt even more miserable and desperate. These people still felt that they were taking her older sister's position, but they didn't ask for my opinion and married me to my brother-in-law back then. Now I feel that I'm taking someone else's position. She was from her maternal family, so whenever she mentioned her sister, she would speak in a regretful tone, blah blah blah. Her protest seemed weak and helpless. Once she made a fuss, it would seem that she had taken advantage of him and was now pretending to be innocent. As the child grew up, the child no longer called the client mother, but little aunt. He also felt that the client had taken over his mother's position. In short, they weren't close. Xiao Zijin deliberately portrayed this lack of intimacy. Every day, the client had to be a big sister. Only when she fell asleep did she feel like a different person. When the sun rose, it was as if her soul had left her body. She was no longer herself, but a marionette. However, Xiao Zijin did treat the client quite well. There were no concubines in the backyard. In the capital, Xiao Zijin could be considered a man of high status and power. I want to marry him. Facing the envious gazes of others, the client smiled like an elder sister. Some people's gazes were quite strange. If the client's appearance was only somewhat similar to his sister's before, then their behavior and temperament were 90% similar now. At first glance, it was as if a dead person had come back to life. The client endured it. Her heart had been blocked by this breath, but she couldn't vent it. No one around her cared what she thought. Then, the client fell ill. Before she died, She accidentally learned that on the second day of her marriage, she drank the childless soup and would never have children in this life. The client completely collapsed. Xiao Zijin used her lifetime of happiness, personality, and dignity to recall the little bit of beauty in his heart. In order to ensure that she didn't have any selfish motives and wouldn't have other thoughts after giving birth to a child, she would never be able to have children in this life. Did she say that she wanted to marry him? The childless soup became the last straw that broke the camel's back. If there was no childless soup, perhaps the client would feel sorry for herself and feel sorry for her life. But being treated like this by her husband on the second day of her marriage, then the marriage proposal was also deliberate. Her parents had all kinds of thoughts and married her off. So, the client vomited blood and died. Her wish was that she didn't want to be a marionette. She really had enough of living in the shadow of a dead person. Ning Shu opened his eyes in the steamy wooden barrel. It was said that the status of women in this era was low, but the client's situation should be a very extreme example. Without thinking, she was a puppet. Some people would resist, and most people in this situation would suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. Even if they regained their freedom, they would not want to leave. This should be Xiao Zijin's terrible and desirable ideal plan in her heart. Secondly, Ning Ani was only 16 years old, and Xiao Zijin was almost 24 years old. It was a pity that the client had already become a princess consort and had already drunk the infertility decoction. Ning Shu touched her belly under the water. The greatest achievement of a woman was to give birth to children. When this was taken away from her, the pain could be imagined. Whether I want to have children or not is my business. But if you make me unable to have children, I won't let you off. Princess, the water is cold. Do you want to get up? Mammy Li asked Ning Shu softly. Ning Shu nodded and stood up from the bathtub. The maidservant wiped off the water droplets on her body. Although there were people serving her in brocade clothes, there was no hope for such a life. Without motivation and anger in her heart, she was like a walking corpse. Mammy Li covered Ning Shu with clothes and helped Ning Shu put on her undergarments. Ning Shu yawned, went around the screen, and directly lay down on the bed, looking lazy. Mammy Li reminded Ning Shu, "Princess, please pay attention to your manners." Ning Shu pulled the quilt over her body and ignored her words. She was talking in his ear when eating and sleeping. What was the purpose of life? Ning Shu rubbed her feet under the quilt. In the winter, the quilt was cold, and the client's hands and feet were cold. Although she had just taken a bath and her body was a little warm, in the cold quilt, her body became cold again. Ning Shu said to Mammy Li, "Prepare a hot water for me to warm my feet. It's cold." Ning Shu began to practice peerless martial arts, and cold air came out of her body. A girl's fire was not very strong, and after drinking the childless soup, her body was cold as if it was not her own in winter. Nanny Li asked the maid to get a hot water bowl for Ning Shu and put it under her feet. /BK Chapter 2749. The princess consort was the master. Although the prince had asked her to supervise, the prince would definitely be angry if she didn't even get a hot water bottle. The prince valued the princess consort quite a lot. With the hot water bottle, Ning Shu felt that his frozen feet were a little warm. Anyway, there was no heat in the lower half of his body under the blanket. As for Xiao Zijin, the emperor had given him a mission recently. He had been busy for a few days and hadn't come here to sleep for a few days. Actually, Xiao Zijin had some strength to compete with his uncle for the position of the emperor, especially now that the emperor doted on his grandson. Therefore, when he asked the client to be his second wife, the Ning family happily agreed. After all, Xiao Zijin might be the future emperor. If the Ning family could produce an empress, it would be a great thing to bring glory to their family. Unfortunately, of the two daughters who married Xiao Zijin, one died in childbirth, and the other died of depression and vomited blood. It was impossible for the Ning family to rely on their daughter to become the emperor's father-in-law. When Xiao Zijin was tired and sleepy, he would go to the room he used to live in with Ning Anshuang. After the client married Xiao Zijin, they lived in another courtyard, not in the original main room. Not living in the main room made the client's identity even more awkward. When Xiao Zijin didn't come to the client's place, he would go to his old room. The room was filled with portraits of Ning Anshuang. Ning Shu spat. If they were really in love with each other, they could just stay by these portraits and live their lives. And it was so harmful. Xiao Zijin probably knew that his wife was dead and the emperor would appoint a noble lady as his wife. At this time, the client was the best candidate. He was somewhat similar to his wife. Occasionally he could deceive himself and express his feelings of yearning on the client's body. Who knew if Xiao Zijin really loved Ning Anshuang at this time or if he was used to thinking about her? With the hot water bottle, Ning Shu's body felt a little more comfortable. He absorbed a small amount of spiritual energy and fell asleep. He felt that this body was lacking sleep. The client probably didn't sleep well. In the middle of the night, he heard the baby crying loudly. The cries spread far and wide. Ning Shu didn't even move on the bed. He continued to sleep. The baby's cries grew louder and louder. It was heartbreaking. The maidservant who was keeping watch at night gently called out to Ning Shu, "Princess consort, the little heir is crying. Do you want to go over and take a look?" Ning Shu said in a muffled voice, "There's a wet nurse. The wet nurse will take good care of him." Usually, she had to take care of the child's needs as soon as possible. However, the child was not close to her at all. Xiao Zijin had taught him not to get close to her. It's fine if you don't want to get close to him. Anyway, he's your son. You can take care of him yourself. The young maidservant was a little uneasy and whispered, "But the little heir keeps crying. Is he uncomfortable?" Right now, the most pampered person in the residence was the little heir. If something were to happen to the little heir, it would be a complete mess. Ning Shu just snorted twice and didn't intend to get up. The little servant girl was helpless. She had already reminded her master, but there was nothing she could do if her master didn't go. The prince would definitely be angry. The young maidservant nudged Ning Shu again. "Princess consort, do you want to get up? Let me help you change." How much courage did it take to get up on such a cold day? If she got up, the bed would be cold again. Although there was a charcoal brazier, it couldn't be lit under the bed. Ning Shu also knew that this maidservant was reminding her out of kindness, so she said, "It's okay. He's just hungry. The wet nurse will feed him." The young maidservant looked uncertain and had nothing to say. The child kept crying and woke Xiao Zijin up. Xiao Zijin hurriedly put on her clothes and had the servant beside her carry a lantern to the child's room. As soon as she entered the room, she saw the wet nurse coaxing the child with an anxious expression. The child closed his eyes and wailed loudly. His hands and feet were flailing, and his face was red. "What's wrong with him?" Xiao Zijin asked with a sullen face. The wet nurse said fearfully, "He might be having a nightmare. Let me coax him more and he'll be fine." "Where's Princess Consort? Why isn't Princess Consort coming?" Xiao Zijin looked around and didn't see her wife. Her face darkened even more. The child was crying like this, but she didn't even come to take a look. The backyard and the child should be the Princess Consort's responsibility. Is there any way to make him stop crying like this? Xiao Zijin's heart ached when she saw her son crying like this. "Let me coax him more and call out the little heir's name." The wet nurse was so anxious that she was sweating all over and her back was covered in cold sweat. She was afraid of being punished. The previous wet nurse who neglected the heir had met a terrible end. The wet nurse didn't know why the little heir was crying. He didn't eat and just cried like this. "Let me carry him." Xiao Zijin reached out and took the weak child from the wet nurse's arms. She gently coaxed and slowly rocked him. As if feeling a sense of security from Xiao Zijin, the child gradually stopped crying and fell into a deep sleep. Xiao Zijin handed the child to the wet nurse. As soon as he went out, his face was as dark as the sky. Xiao Zijin went directly to his wife's courtyard. The servant knocked on the door and the maidservant opened it. When she saw Xiao Zijin, she was so frightened that she hurriedly called for Ning Shu. Ning Shu sat up and looked at the cold Xiao Zijin. Xiao Zijin's face was handsome and the son resembled his father. From Xiao Zijin, one could see how glorious Xiao Zijin's father was. But now that she saw Ning Shu in the warm bed and the child crying so pitifully, Xiao Zijin's heart surged with anger. This was a failure as a wife. Ning Shu smiled slightly. Why is Prince here? It's cold outside. Come here quickly. Ning Shu patted the empty space on the bed. Come up and we'll have a story. Hong is crying like this. Why don't you go and see him? You're his mother. Xiao Zijin looked coldly at Ning Shu. Ning Shu still smiled, but his smile was dazzling to Xiao Zijin. He could still smile at this time. If it was Shuang, who knew how anxious she would be right now. She wouldn't care about someone who wasn't her biological child. Now she was so neglectful. If she had her own child, she would probably ignore Hong, or even more. Not everyone was as kind as Shuang. Ning Shu sighed and said, this concubine has never raised a child. If there's a problem with the child, this concubine is blind and doesn't know what to do. If there are too many people, the child will be easily frightened. The wet nurse hired by the Fu can calm Hong. Xiao Zijin was still not happy. She was even angrier. This was a matter of attitude. If Hong was sick or something happened to him, she didn't care. Was this proper? Marrying this wife, besides being Shuang's younger sister, she looked a bit similar to Shuang. More importantly, she took care of Hong. Hong was her nephew. She should care about Hong more than other women and not treat Hong as a thorn in her side. Now it seemed that he was taking things for granted. Her performance before was quite good. Now she was lazy? Chapter 2750. Ning Shu and Xiao Zijin looked at each other speechlessly. Xiao Zijin saw his princess consort sitting on the bed and did not get out of bed to welcome her. Ning Shu smiled and said, Your Highness, it's too cold. I won't get out of bed. Xiao Zijin. It was definitely a mistake. She should take good care of her husband. But it was not a big mistake. After all, it was so cold. It was not bad that his wife did not get out of bed. If a husband cared for his wife, he probably would not force his wife out of bed. But Xiao Zijin's heart was filled with anger. That was the princess consort's neglect of the child. Now that he looked so lazy, Xiao Zijin felt very uncomfortable. Hong is also your nephew. Not to mention that he is your child now, even as his aunt, you should be worried when he is sick. Xiao Zijin was wearing clothes. In the middle of the night, her body was cold. Ning Shu said, Of course I am worried about Hong, but I can't do anything. What's the use of standing there? I really planned to get someone to invite a doctor over to take a look at him. When a child was uncomfortable, hungry, or pooped, he could only cry to express himself. Xiao Zijin could clearly feel that the other party was being perfunctory. Was she Hong's biological mother? If she was, she would probably be by Hong's bedside, unable to fall asleep. Ning Shu had seen many people like Xiao Zijin. She wanted others to do things that she could not do herself. If the dead Ning Anshuang knew about Xiao Zijin's actions, she would probably vomit in disgust. If I died and you married another woman, I wouldn't say anything. But you found someone similar to me and let this woman imitate me, learn from me, and flaunt your love. While mourning me affectionately, you found a woman to disgust others. Who did you want to disgust? For Ning Ani, she had no room to resist. She was forced to learn from her sister and live like her sister. Her husband gave all his love to her sister. On the second day of marriage, she was forced to take medicine to prevent her from having children. She could not have children for the rest of her life. She had to take care of her sister and brother-in-law's children. She also had to take good care of them. If there was anything wrong with the child, she had to be more proactive than anyone else. Otherwise, she would not be qualified and would not be the perfect wife image of Xiao Zijin. For the rest of her life, she had to live under the shadow of a dead person, and that person was her own sister. Who should be blamed? Perhaps Tian's sister still resented her for taking her place. In short, Xiao Zijin's self-righteous love tortured the two women. Xiao Zijin watched as Ning Shu sat motionless on the bed, wrapping himself in the quilt from time to time. He looked as if he wished he could use the quilt to cover himself up. Previously, she was still considered virtuous. What was going on now? The young maidservant was trembling with fear. Could it be that Wang Fei didn't see that Wang Ye was angry? She wanted to remind Wang Fei several times, but Wang Ye was here, so she didn't dare to speak. Xiao Zijin snorted coldly. She flicked her sleeves and turned to leave. The manservant beside her hurriedly followed with a lantern. Ning Shu lay down. Who doesn't know how to snort? The hot water woman is a little cold. Change the hot water. Ning Shu said to the little maid. Ah yes. The little maid froze for a moment. Apparently, she didn't expect that Ning Shu's request was to change the hot water woman. After stuffing the hot water woman back into the quilt, Ning Shu sighed comfortably and then went to sleep. While cultivating, he was thinking about how to counterattack. In this era of 3 obedience and 4 virtues, a married woman's husband was everything. When a woman's status was low, she didn't dare to resist a man's request. In addition, Xiao Zijin consciously trained her client to be a beloved wife. According to the steps of training, if she made a mistake, she would be beaten with a stick and neglected. If she did well, she would be rewarded. It was a carrot for a stick. She was very willing to use both the carrot and the stick. This time, she made Xiao Zijin unhappy. Xiao Zijin would certainly neglect her for a long time. Ning Shu expressed that he didn't want to get rid of the life of a puppet, who made the client's life like a puppet and made the client's life hopeless. It was him, it was him, it was still him, Xiao Zijin. To solve the client's situation, it was up to Xiao Zijin. Otherwise, Xiao Zijin would die. No one would control the client, let the client wear what they wanted, and what they wanted to eat. Then, the client would raise his nephew. In the future, the glory of the Wangfu would still be in the hands of this child. The client would be the boss of this Wangfu. Although the orphan and widow were pitiful, they were still relatives of the imperial family. They didn't have to worry about food and clothing. He loved his wife so much, then send him to see his wife. However, he had to ensure that there were no loopholes in this matter. He had to make it seem that Xiao Zijin's death was caused by the fight for the throne. In any case, Xiao Zijin's uncles didn't like him. Another plan was to train Xiao Zijin into a shiver. If you train me, I will turn you into a puppet. In front of the client, you would be a masochist. However, this method could be subverted at any time. There was no guarantee that it would work. Moreover, people were fickle. Either let Xiao Zijin lie sick in bed, everything in the Wangfu depended on the client. At this time, Xiao Zijin wouldn't have the energy to train the client. However, it could also be because she was sick in bed and became more mentally distorted. Although there were many plans in this era where divorce was not allowed, especially in a royal marriage, it was a bit of a scam to swallow the joys and sorrows by oneself. Moreover, the maternal family would definitely not agree. Firstly, their reputation would be ruined. Secondly, their glory would be gone. The emperor's reaction might be even more fatal. What, you want to divorce my grandson? My grandson was abandoned by a woman. There was no such thing. Therefore, the possibility of divorce was zero. The path of separation was not feasible. This kind of feeling was like stepping on dog feces, but there was no way to jump away. There was no way to deal with this pile of feces. She could only be tied here and cry. The relationship between the two was so unbalanced that it rotted bit by bit. The client was in such a relationship. The more Xiao Zijin abused her and put shackles on her mind, the more the client was attached to Xiao Zijin and couldn't leave her. Because she had sacrificed too much, she was not reconciled and wanted to get back her original self from this man. She imitated others and ate the food she didn't like. She had sacrificed a lot. Moreover, she would continue to sacrifice to get less and less attention. If it wasn't for the contraceptive soup, Ning Ani would have lived like this for the rest of her life. In fact, this was the reason why girls couldn't leave scumbags. Humans had a strong self-healing ability, but this was also harmful. It made people unable to give up this harmful way of living. Ning Ani knew that this kind of life was hopeless, but there was no other way. She couldn't leave this harmful person. /BK, you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.